I would submit to you, I don't disagree with you, but I would submit to you that there are two pieces to that. Some of that money needs to come from the people who have accumulated mind-boggling amounts of it. Instead of sending themselves into outer space in rocket ships and buying, $500 million yachts, they should be paying their damn taxes. And then we can distribute that money to people. And what he's decrying is that the government is basically, printing this money through the Fed. Which was the Trump administration policy, I suppose.
I agree. It's got to be a tax on the 1/10 of the 1%, especially. There have been three major crashes in the U.S. recent history: the '29 crash, the '87 crash, and the 2008 crash. And each one was precipitated by huge tax cuts for that 1/10 of 1%. Before 1929, it went down from 77% income tax top rates down to 24%, and then it crashed.
Yeah.
In 1987, it had gone from 94% in the 40s down to 38% in 1987, and it crashed. In 2008, they had income tax cuts plus big cuts to the capital gains tax for the richest, and it crashed. Each of those times before the crash, wealth concentration soared. It sucked money to the super wealthy. It sucked money out of the economy, sent it all to the head, just like sending all the blood to the head, causing gangrene to the leg, eventually killing the human body.
Yeah.
And so we have to spend, and you're so right about the other half of the coin is that there have to be these taxes to reduce that concentration of wealth. If we don't, we've set the stage for a crash, and any little straw that breaks the camel's back economically can trigger it. But the only thing that stops it from having the stage set is reducing that wealth concentration.
Right.
If it had just happened once, it could be a coincidence. But when it happens three times in a row, 29, 1987, and 2008, all the same statistics, all the same figures, you know what causes it.
Yeah, I think one of the ways to characterize taxing the rich is that it is a societal stabilizer, not just a stabilizer for the economy, but for the political system as well. For the mental health of the country. Actually, if you look at the work from Quality Trust, go ahead.
It's essential. Danny Dorling has done some great research over at Oxford in Britain on this, about how societies, they know when they're unequal, and it ruins the society economically. He's even pointed to studies of chimpanzees, how they will become just enraged when some chimpanzee gets more food than all the others, and they'll literally attack him and start biting him. It's a natural.
Oh, it's that way with human children too. I mean, they don't necessarily attack and bite, but they freak out and they will protest. They will cry when they experience or believe that they are experiencing or even witnessing unfairness, basically. Gary, thank you. Well put. 52 minutes past the hour. Back with your calls right after this. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. We're available on SiriusXM, Free Speech TV, Pacifica, commercial stations nationwide, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker to listen to the Thom Hartmann Program. So David Perry over at Medium.com put together a list of 38 reasons to investigate the Trump administration. Everything from the Russian influence over the 2016 election to the Trump family's collusion with Russia to Ivanka Trump's trademarks to federal spending at Trump properties to the civilians killed by Trump's drone strikes to the Trump administration's role in turning the United States into the global epicenter for the COVID-19 pandemic. Yes, we are. Yes, it's grim. Their decision to sideline the CDC, politicizing mask wearing just to try to get himself reelected, the number of people who died because the White House kept PPE from blue states, from Democratic-led states, the contents of the Trump documents that Trump refused to release to the House Judiciary Committee and other committees, all the people who wouldn't speak, at all, ignoring subpoenas, violations of the Hatch Act, the deportation of COVID-positive immigrant families, illegal altering of records. Anyhow, there's a whole list. It's over at ThomHartmann.com. Check it out. welcome back. Picking up your phone calls. Ken in La Center, Washington. Hey, Ken, what's up?
Good morning, Bill Webfoot. I'm calling in regards to the Chamber of Commerce businesses. This is going to date me, but back in the 60s in my liberal public education, I was told that, first of all, I was told that white people would be in the minority by mid-century, by 2050 or so.
Which is true.
Right. And then I was also told in a civics or government class that companies incorporate in a state, and they have a state charter.
That's
and I was
true
told
also.
that the state could possibly revoke.
That's also true. In fact, it was routine. It was called the corporate death penalty. And up until the late 1890s, it was a common occurrence. States would frequently pull with the corporate charters of corporations. It's what Ohio threatened to do to John Rockefeller in the 1880s. And, in the early 1890s, excuse me. I think it was 1892, 1893. And that led to the charter mongering era when states changed their corporate charter laws. This was the period from around 1894 until around 03. And there was this huge competition among half a dozen of the northeastern states. And New Jersey got John Rockefeller's business. They changed their charter laws to allow basically monopolies, what he was doing, the Standard Oil monopoly. And but Delaware ended up winning the competition in terms of having the lowest bar, the lowest threshold for corporate behavior. And that's why more than half of the companies today that are sold on the New York Stock Exchange are actually chartered in Delaware. The problem is that states don't pull corporate charters anymore. It takes absolutely insanely egregious behavior. I think that the last corporate charter that I can recall that was pulled was Enron. And that was after they had been convicted of all these crimes and they had collapsed and everything had gone to hell. So theoretically, it's there, Ken, but it ain't happening today. Sadly.
I figured it wouldn't have any legs because there'd be lots of Republican states would welcome them.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Ken, thank you for the call. Cindy in Houston. Cindy, we just have a half a minute. You got a quick point you want to make?
Oh, boy. Okay, I'm going to try to make it really quick. I just want the people out there to realize that Donald Trump is not president, right? But it seems that the states, the governors, are doing his bidding. It's something that we need to be aware of.
Yes, absolutely. Cindy, I'm sorry. I was off on my time. I didn't even have a half a minute. I'm so sorry. Feel free to call in again this week. Cindy, thanks so much for the call. And thank you for being with us today. We'll be back tomorrow, same time.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit delivery service. More information at hellofresh.com, code TOM. CB Distillery for sleeping and pain relief. More info at cbdistillery.com, code TOM. Annie's Kit Clubs, creativity delivered right to your door. More info is available at annieskitclubs.com/Tom. EasyFlow, personal air filtration system. Fresh air anywhere. More info at easyflowusa.com, code TOM. Masterclass with world-class instructors. More info at masterclass.com/Hartmann. And Dinovite, only the best all-natural pet supplements. More info at dinovite.com.
We say fight back!
Not really, no. Take that back, because we're still way behind. Free Speech TV needs your help and needs it today, especially today. And in fact, hey, you know, there's this end of drive challenge. Frontline funder Mike in San Francisco is doubling donations up to $5,000. Plus, we're at the end of the challenge week, which is where frontline funders Sandy and Stewart in Sunnyvale, California, say that if we hit our goals at the end of this week, they're going to kick in another $5,000 too. So your contribution, but you know, in particular, with Mike in San Francisco, your donation will be doubled up to $5,000. Now that's substantial. I realize there are not a lot of $5,000 donors out there, but there might be some $500 donors or some $100 donors or some $50 donors or some $5 donors who would love to see their donation doubled on this last day of the Free Speech TV fund drive, pledge drive. And this is your opportunity right now to double your, what's the old gum ad? I'm not going to sing it, I promise. But your opportunity to double your impact, double your pleasure, and double your fun by calling now, 877-378-8669, and making your contribution on this last day of this pledge drive. Free Speech TV is in a bit of a hole, needs your help digging out of it. And so, you know, the way to do that, very simple, very straightforward. Make a one-time gift of whatever you can, and then, you know, look at your budget. And if you're inclined, you know, if you get value from Free Speech TV, if you're a regular viewer of this program or other programs, then, you know, look at your budget and say, well, okay, I can afford this every month, or I can afford that every month. And, you know, I'll do that for a year and see how it goes and see if Free Speech TV is, you know, if they stay on the air, hopefully we'll still be here. I don't think we're in danger of going away anytime soon, but, or at least I can't speak for Free Speech TV, but I don't think they're in danger of going away anytime soon. But it is tight. It is tight. And I mean that very seriously. And your help is needed. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV, there are volunteers standing by, manning the phones, you know, as they say in the fundraising world, ready to take your call, ready to take your contribution. And whatever you give, whether it's $5, $50, $500, $20, $200, $2,000, whatever it may be, up to $5,000, it will be doubled by Mike in San Francisco. Thank you, Mike, for that. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and put down your marker on the right side of history. Be part of this one single progressive television network, the only one in America. Be part of America's #1 progressive television network. #1. Yeah, we're winners. You can be part of this. Call now, 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. There are, of course, goodies, premiums. When you make your contribution with a $20 gift, there's your choice of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Take Action, Make History Pride sticker, or the I'm Vaccinated sticker, which, will get you a smile from the maitre d' at the restaurant when you show up, I'm sure. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV Real Change Comes from the Grassroots tote bag in 2 elegant designs, your choice. Fine to go with any outfit. With a $75 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann Collector's Item mug, the official program mug. The only place you can get it is here, and the only time you can get it is now. With a $100 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV face mask, actually 2 of them, or the Wilmington on Fire DVD. Excuse me. With a $120 gift, you get an autographed copy of my book on oligarchy, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy. Basically, who's conspiring to destroy American democracy, how, and how can we stop them? That's the Hidden History of American Oligarchy, or the Free Speech TV Justice T-shirt, stylishly designed by Free Speech TV viewer Barry. With a $240 gift, you have your choice of the Reclaiming Democracy book set, The Hidden History of Oligarchy, The Hidden History of Monopolies, or the participate in our meet and greet. Come hang out with us in a Zoom call. Those are always fascinating. With the $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann Summer box set with the University bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV bumper sticker, the Take Action, Make History Pride sticker, the Free Speech TV Real Change Comes in the Grassroots tote bag, the Wilmington on Fire DVD, and the Collector's Item Thom Hartmann mug. And with $1,000, come to Portland and hang out with us for an hour in the third hour of our show, and then we'll go down the street and have a really nice lunch. So that's the pitch. The bottom line, whatever you give and call right now, 877-378-8669.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Hey, happy Friday, TGIF, Shabbat Shalom, Juma Mubarak, and happy Juneteenth. Wow, we got a new federal holiday yesterday. I noticed a number of my colleagues are taking the day off. All of a sudden, we thought it's just a little too short notice. So here we are, but next year we'll have this day off. But anyhow, it's Juneteenth. We have a new holiday, and celebrating the actual. You can't really say the end of. Well, I suppose you could say the legal end of slavery, or the last community that realized that slavery had been ended more than 2 years earlier. This in Galveston, Texas, and it's a fine thing. It's over at the Writing. THERIGHTING.com. They've got all these headlines about, I'm not even going to repeat them, but just, basically accusing even the Republicans who voted for this. There was a little more than a dozen Republicans who voted no, but even the Republicans who voted for Juneteenth of some kind of tokenism or whatever. But what I think the real impact of this is, and I think it's going to be a really good thing, in the midst of this time when you've got state after state passing laws banning teachers from teaching the actual history of the Native American genocide and African slavery in this country, by this country. As those laws are being passed, Juneteenth is going to provide a teaching opportunity. And I see that as just a really, really good thing. There was just for example, I mean, this is how bad it is. This is in Virginia. This was posted by Kay Pete over on Democratic Underground today. It's the first page of chapter 29 of a 7th grade history textbook in Virginia. Now they may not be using this textbook anymore. Kay Pete says this is circa 1961. Actually, it links to a larger story that, polite racism, that has this. This is I just have to read this to you. This is just incredible. Early in Virginia's history, the General Assembly made laws closely controlling the Negroes. However, the laws were not fully enforced. Many slave masters did not like to have the state government meddle in what they considered their private business. They managed their servants according to their own methods. They knew the best way to control their slaves was to win their confidence and affection. A strong feeling of affection existed between masters and slaves in the majority of Virginia homes. The house servants became almost as much a part of the planter's family circle as its white members. The Negroes were always present at family weddings. They were allowed to look on at dances and other entertainments. A strong tie existed between slave and master because each was dependent. Life among the Negroes of Virginia in slavery times was generally happy. The Negroes went about in a cheerful manner, making a living for themselves and for those for whom they worked. But they were not worried by the furious arguments going on between Northerners and Southerners over what should be done with them. In fact, they paid little attention to these arguments. This is what, fifth graders, sixth graders were learning in Virginia in the 1960s. And this whole polite racism post over at JoanTrumpauerMulholland.org /polite-racism is really remarkable. As I said, there's an easy link to it over at Democratic Underground. This is what a lot of white people in America grew up thinking was real. It's what I'm betting a lot of these of these Republican, these white, this is just crazy. And thank God we're starting to wake up from it. And thank God we're starting to teach the real history of America. And thank God that, the gods or the goddess, that reality is setting in. Anyhow, the piece, by the way, on our program today, in our second hour, our third hour is going to be just anything goes, you and me. Second hour, Lamar Waldron is going to be here. And we're going to do a deep dive today, in addition to being Juneteenth. And this is wildly ironic, given that Nixon's war on drugs was literally, as John Haldeman said, a war on black people. Anti-war hippies and black people. John was it Ehrlichman? Yeah, no, it was Ehrlichman. John Ehrlichman told a reporter back in back about 20 years ago that, we wanted to break up the anti-war movement, and we wanted to break up the civil rights movement, and so we criminalized these drugs heavily, and then we used that as an excuse to invade their homes and break up their communities and cause chaos, and I'm paraphrasing. So today is also the anniversary, the 50th anniversary of Nixon declaring the war on drugs, and which has cost America billions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of lives, and fallen massively disproportionately on people of color generally and the black community specifically. And Lamar has written an entire book about Nixon and his presidency, and so we're going to dig into that in the second hour. Dean Obeidallah is going to be with us at the bottom of this hour. He's going to drop by. As a Muslim American, he has a special take on what we should be calling the so-called insurrectionists on January 6th. We'll get into that in a little bit. But the piece that I published the piece that I published today over at HartmannReport.com is titled "The Demise of Local Entrepreneurialism is the Death of the American Dream." And what we're seeing right now, there was this huge change in the American business landscape. And in the article, I tell the story. I've been an entrepreneur literally since I was 17 years old. In fact, when I was 7 years old, my dad, who worked in a tool and die shop, he and his best friend, Jerry Miller, tried to start a vitamin company. They called it Milhart Laboratories. They were selling them through the mail. They took out little ads in newspapers around the country. And I remember 7 years old, sitting in my dad's basement, filling vitamin bottles from this giant bag of giant brown pills, these horse pills, that Dad and Jerry thought was going to, build them a little business. They lost their shirts on that, but I was watching. And I learned how to be an entrepreneur from my dad's failure. And the first business I started was when I was 17. And that business failed after we built it up to 5 employees, but then I tried to grow it too fast and got caught in a debt trap, and that was the end of that. But, since then we've started 9 businesses, and we've had, 4 of them that were quite successful. That's how it used to be in America. We used to have small businesses all over this country. We used to have local banks. We used to have local clothing stores. We used to have local furniture stores. We used to have local gift stores. We used to have local travel agencies. We used to have local everything. Route 66, this TV show that came out in the early 60s, it was about Marty Milner and George Maharis traveling across the country, hitting little towns all the way. And you always knew what town they were in because the name of the town was on half the businesses. Oh, it's the Peoria Bank. Well, now, if you were to jump out of an airplane, with a parachute from a couple miles up and land in any random city in America, what would you see? The hotels would be Marriott and Hyatt. The banks would be Wells Fargo and Bank of America. You would have no friggin' idea. The restaurants would be Ruby Tuesdays and Olive Garden and McDonald's. You'd have no friggin' idea where you were. And here's what's so deadly about this. Used to be with your local businesses, when Louise and I ran local businesses, we had a travel agency in Atlanta, we had an advertising agency in Atlanta, we had an herbal tea company in Michigan. I could go on, but in any case, when we used to run local businesses, at the end of the day, you put your money from the revenue from that day in the local bank, and the local bank then loans that money to people to buy houses or loans it to other small businesses to start their businesses. Our first business, we had a $3,000 bank loan. It was the thing that caught us in the end, but there it was. So the money stayed local, and it built the local economy. It's why small town America was vibrant before Reagan. In 1983, Reagan explicitly stopped enforcing the antitrust laws. And no president since then has gone back to enforcing them, although the Biden administration is talking about that right now. As a result, we've got this American business landscape that is like a giant, just imagine a giant space alien that looks like an octopus that has come down and landed on America and put out its tentacles all across the country. And in every town in America, it is sucking up all the cash and keeping it. Because at the end of the day, the local Walmart, which has replaced 120 local businesses, the local Walmart doesn't put that money in the local bank. They push a button and that money goes to Bentonville, Arkansas. Never to be seen again by the local community. And this is why local communities across America have been devastated. I wrote an entire book about this, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy, how it happened, who the culprits were, and what we can do about it. And now that the Biden administration is pushing this Build Back Better program, and they're very serious about that. You got, Bernie and a bunch of progressive Democrats in the Senate are, they're trying to put together a $6 trillion piece of legislation that they're going to push through by reconciliation. And there's a chance. And if the Biden administration is dead serious, if they're really serious about building back better and making America once again the kind of landscape, the kind of business landscape where you can start your own business, you can build it up, you don't have to be worried about being squashed like a bug by a giant corporation. You can keep it in your family, or as I've sold 3 of my companies to my own employees. This is how it used to be in America. And if we want that back, we can get that by just breaking up these giant monopolies. It should be part of the Build Back Better program, of Biden's Build Back Better program. And so, thus my rant today. And there's a longer piece that you can read over at Hartmann Report about that. It's 18 minutes past the hour. Thom Hartmann here with you. I'll pick up your phone calls on the other side of this break. As I said, Dean will be with us at the bottom of the hour, but it's Anything Goes Friday. We'll be back to your calls. This is the Thom Hartmann Program. It's your media support group for we the people of America, those of us who believe in democracy. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Mike in Lamar, California. Hey, Mike, thanks for listening to us on KPFK. What's up?
Hey, Tom. Yeah, I won't be reading your report at the Hartmann Report because I am one of those people without internet service now.
Oh, no.
And so I'm calling in to represent all the people who don't have internet and to suggest that what we need in this country when we're doing infrastructure is to establish a government option for internet service run by the post office perhaps, but which could bring internet to everybody that currently does not have it because they're getting priced out by the ISPs, internet service providers that exist. What happens in my case is that the company to which I had finally repaired to seek refuge from other oppressive ISPs was bought up by one of the companies that I had managed to escape from, and now they seem to have shut off service. And I go into the local store and they say, yeah, it should be there in 15 minutes. You've paid your bill. And 24 hours later, 8 days later, still no service. And the phone calls get anymore. When I check the service option on the robot, I get put on hold for 15 minutes, then the phone is disconnected.
Wow. What's the big company that you're stuck to now, Mike, if you don't mind saying? I mean, feel free if you'd rather not.
Yeah, if you don't mind,
I don't mind
my mentioning
companies on the air.
It's T-Mobile.
Oh, geez.
And they just gobbled up Sprint.
Yeah.
And in one of the conversations with one of their customer service reps in one of these apparently overseas call centers, they let slip that management is trying to force everybody with a mobile hotspot to switch to their new 5G hotspots for the better part of $200. Something which I consider a bit extortionate, since perfectly fine with 4G.
Yeah.
But every right that's enumerated in our founding documents or implied depends nowadays on the internet.
Yeah.
From religious practice in this age of pandemics to solicitation of the government for redress of grievances. The most effective communications I seem to have had with my representatives and senators, part of group efforts by environmental groups, everything nowadays, including getting vaccinated against a deadly disease, is aided and almost
online.
Requires internet service.
I am with you, Mike. You know, Chattanooga, Tennessee has now a city-run broadband system that's cheaper than most for-profit ones and is like gigabyte speed. It's blindingly fast. I think that what we should do is basically declare the internet part of the commons. Go back, of course, to an open internet, back to net neutrality, and basically take it away from these giant corporations. Let local communities or counties do it, and then for those people who live in such rural areas that they really, don't have any access to the internet, the federal government should run, basically, buy out or take over something like the HughesNet. I mean, there's a couple of satellite internet services. All of that could be done. I'm with you.
Right. And it's the taxpayers that paid for the internet in the first place.
You're right. Yes, we invented it. We should own it. Mike, thank you. Sort of like the vaccine companies are saying right now. We'll be right back. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. Ask a boomer what it was like going to college back in the 60s and 70s and whether they had to go into debt to do it. And odds are they'll tell you that they not only didn't have to go into debt, in fact, college was free in California until Ronald Reagan became governor. Not only did they not have to go into debt, but you could pretty much work your way through college just with a part-time job. That is very much no longer the case. Only 8% of millennials and Gen Xers have never had a student loan. This is a crushing burden on these two generations, and it's time to clean it up. And when Americans were asked What do you think? Should we just wipe the slate clean? Should we get rid of all this student debt? 60% of Americans said yes. And then, of course, the corollary to that would be, and then let's make college free, at least state colleges and community colleges. There's a whole video about this over at thomhartmann.com for supporters of our program. You can check it out there. Welcome back. It's Anything Goes Friday, and Jessica in Chicago. Hey, Jessica, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I have loved your shows this week. They have been incredible. And thank you for having that doctor talk about COVID.
Yeah, Feigelding. Yes, he's good.
Yes. And January 6th special prosecutor is still the best way to deal with the traitors in our government. They didn't vote on that commission because they're part of the treasonous insurrection. And if it wasn't for them being idiots and incompetent, Trump would be ruling, and then his idiot kids. So Trump doesn't, here's the funny part. I think you were laughing at it too. When Trump said he was watching it at the White House, and he said he's watching everything involving the Capitol, and then he said, he complained. They're dressed awful. They're old and they're out of shape. He didn't even like his own base.
Really? So, I didn't. Where did you see that reporting? I didn't know. He's complaining that it was boomers and Gen Xers who were attacking the Capitol.
Yes, he always insults people. He insulted his own base. He was saying how he couldn't stand how they were dressed and how they looked like they were out of shape when he's sitting there watching. And
as he's eating a McDonald's cheeseburger and sipping his Diet Coke, right?
Yes, and so some of those oath keepers and the 1%ers, they're going to turn evidence. And leading up to the insurrection, the Pollard website was actually being incredibly responsible.
Oh, they notified the FBI 50 times that violence was coming to the Capitol building. And the FBI was like, sorry, we're all Trump appointees here in the senior administration now, so it's all good.
And I think that FBI Ray needs to be fired for incompetence or in handcuffs for being a traitor. I think he might be in on it, too, along with those Flynn brothers. And that's insane because, I
don't think that Chris Wray was in on it, but he certainly was turning a blind eye to what was going on in the FBI when he was running it. And he should not be in that position right now.
One of the Pollard posts called for 150,000 people to wear body armor and be ready for war.
Amazing. Well, they were. I mean, the fourth guy carrying a semi-automatic weapon into the Capitol building was charged today. 4 of them now with semi-automatic weapons. Jessica, thank you for the call.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
Up next, my SiriusXM colleague, Dean Obeidallah. He's got a special word for the traitors who attacked the Capitol. Tell you all about that right after this. No, not really. No, take that back, because we're still way behind. Free Speech TV needs your help and needs it today, especially today. And in fact, there's this end of drive challenge. Frontline funder Mike in San Francisco is doubling donations up to $5,000. Plus, we're at the end of the challenge week, which is where frontline funders Sandy and Stewart in Sunnyvale, California, say that if we hit our goals at the end of this week, they're going to kick in another $5,000 too. So your contribution, but in particular, with Mike in San Francisco, your donation will be doubled, up to $5,000. Now, that's substantial. I realize there are not a lot of $5,000 donors out there, but there might be some $500 donors or some $100 donors or some $50 donors or some $5 donors who would love to see their donation doubled on this last day of the Free Speech TV fund drive, pledge drive. And this is your opportunity right now to double your, what's the old gum ad? I'm not going to sing it, I promise. But your opportunity to double your impact, double your pleasure, and double your fun by calling now 877-378-8669 and making your contribution on this last day of this pledge drive. Free Speech TV is in a bit of a hole, needs your help digging out of it. And so, you know, the way to do that, very simple, very straightforward. Make a one-time gift of whatever you can, and then, you know, look at your budget. And if you're inclined, you know, if you get value from Free Speech TV, if you're a regular viewer of this program or other programs, then, you know, look at your budget and say, well, okay, I can afford this every month, or I can afford that every month. And, you know, I'll do that for a year and see how it goes, and see if Free Speech TV is, you know, if they stay on the air, hopefully we'll still be here. I don't think we're in danger of going away anytime soon, but, or at least I can't speak for Free Speech TV, but I don't think they're in danger of going away anytime soon. But it is tight. It is tight. And I mean that very seriously. And your help is needed. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV, there are volunteers standing by, manning the phones, you know, as they say in the fundraising world, ready to take your call, ready to take your contribution. And whatever you give, whether it's $5, $50, $500, $20, $200, $2,000, whatever it may be, up to $5,000, it will be doubled by Mike in San Francisco. Thank you, Mike, for that. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and put down your marker on the right side of history. Be part of this one single progressive television network, the only one in America. Be part of America's #1 progressive television network. #1. Yeah, we're winners. You can be part of this. Call now, 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. There are, of course, goodies, you know, premiums. When you make your contribution with a $20 gift, there's your choice of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Take Action, Make History Pride sticker, or the I'm Vaccinated sticker, which, you know, will get you a smile from the maitre d' at the restaurant when you show up, I'm sure. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV Real Change Comes from the Grassroots tote bag in 2 elegant designs, your choice. Fine to go with any outfit. With a $75 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann Collector's Item mug, the official program mug. The only place you can get it is here, and the only time you can get it is now. With a $100 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV face mask, actually 2 of them, or the Wilmington on Fire DVD. Excuse me. With a $120 gift, you get an autographed copy of my book on oligarchy, The Hidden History of American Oligarchy. Basically, you know, who's conspiring to destroy American democracy, how, and how can we stop them? That's the Hidden History of American Oligarchy, or the Free Speech TV Justice T-shirt, stylishly designed by Free Speech TV viewer Barry. With a $240 gift, you have your choice of the Reclaiming Democracy book set, The Hidden History of Oligarchy, The Hidden History of Monopolies, or the participate in our meet and greet, come hang out with us in a Zoom call. Those are always fascinating. With the $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann Summer box set with the University bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV bumper sticker, the Take Action, Make History Pride sticker, the Free Speech TV Real Change Comes in the Grassroots tote bag, the Wilmington on Fire DVD, and the Collector's Item Thom Hartmann mug. And with $1,000, come to Portland and hang out with us for an hour in the third hour of our show, and then we'll go down the street and have a really nice lunch. So that's the pitch. The bottom line, whatever you give when you call right now, 877-378-8669, will be doubled. So please call now. Thank you.
Imaginative leap that will astonish us, end of quote. The book, The Quantum Revolution.
Our 1-hour free podcast recaps our show, and it's available wherever fine podcasts are found. And we have the full 3-hour podcast available over at thomhartmann.com if you want to really support our program. Astonishing news out of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention that has to do with the lifespan of Americans. Since World War II, the average lifespan of American men and women have continuously increased, all the way up to 78.8 years in 2019. Continuous increase. Things were getting better, more and more people were getting health care, we were making medical technology advances, there was a rather dramatic decline in smoking between the 1990s and the 2010s. All kinds of things were working together. And then came Donald Trump's response to COVID-19, causing America, with 4% of the world's population, to have 20% of the world's deaths. The result of that has been extraordinary. For the first time since World War II, American life expectancy has declined. It's all over in a new video for supporters of our program over at thomhartmann.com. It's my buddy and colleague from SiriusXM's Progress channel, Dean Obeidallah. And Dean, welcome back to the program. You, as a Muslim American, have a unique perspective on the meaning and consequences of the use of the word terrorism. You wrote a brilliant op-ed about this for MSNBC yesterday or the day before. Tell us about it.
Sure, Tom. Thanks for having me on. It's always great to chat with you, and thanks for being on my show earlier this week. I wrote an article for MSNBC based on FBI Director Christopher Wray's testimony this week on Tuesday and also in March. He said the FBI views January 6th as an act of, quote, domestic terrorism, close quotes. And that's not his gut opinion. He's not a talk show host or a pundit. He's looking at the federal law, which defines domestic terrorism as using violence, unlawful violence, to intimidate or coerce public policy or change government. So it's essentially violence that has a political goal. That's how the FBI use it. They don't use the word insurrection. We can use it if we want, but to me, insurrection is more this intellectual word. It might be correct, it might not be, but it's giving the GOP a chance to debate what's an insurrection, what's not.
It's a very 18th century word, too.
Right, it is. Terrorism has a visceral reaction. We know, I know it, as someone who's, as a Muslim American, where we were, why don't we denounce terrorism, and are we soft on terrorism? Are we supporting the terrorists? All this garbage. Well, this January 6th, it's not me as Dean the pundit or host saying it. The FBI director said it was an act of domestic terrorism. I think we should frame it that way. I think Democrats should. I think people in the media should. That this was an act of terrorism, and ask the Republicans the same question George Bush asked after 9/11. You're either with us or you're with the terrorists. And let them downplay a terrorist attack. Frame it that way. Let them say, oh, they weren't all bad terrorists. You're still within our frame, which is the accurate frame. It's not hyperbolic. It is based on the FBI director. So my point is, January 6th was an act of domestic terrorism under federal law. It's undeniable. We should be using that. If you want to add insurrection as well, I get it. That's fine. But terrorism moves people, and let the GOP defend the terrorists like Ashley Babbitt and the others. Everyone involved in an act of terrorism is a terrorist. This is 2 + 2 = 4 stuff. This is what's going on. We have the GOP literally defending an act of terrorism against the United States, which was, I say January 6th was far more dangerous to our democracy than 9/11. I mean, different in terms of people being killed, of course, and destruction, far worse than 9/11. But that was not going to overturn our democracy. January 6th, its goal was to destroy our democracy. That was their goal.
Yeah, it's a genuine act of terrorism. And you know, I recall during the protests over the murder of George Floyd, a Fox News pundit, and I'm straining to remember who it was. Louise and I occasionally pop over there, and it's in the evening, you know. So it was one of the primetime guys was using the word terrorist to describe Black Lives Matter protesters. There is no doubt in my mind. I wrote an op-ed, and you and I talked about this on your program earlier in the week, as I recall. I wrote an op-ed saying that we need to start using the word corrupt as a predicating adjective every single time we use the word Republican. You know, the corrupt Republican so-and-so, or the corrupt Kevin McCarthy, or the corrupt GOP, or the, you know, And you, I mean, this is how Republicans would be playing it if the shoe was on the other foot. If the Democratic Party was as corrupt and in the bag with these giant corporations and whatnot as the Republican Party is, they would be calling them corrupt. And similarly, if it had been Democratic constituents who had attacked the Capitol on January 6th, you can bet your ass that they would be calling them terrorists. I mean, you bet your bottom dollar. I mean, there is no doubt about it. And so, I'll start doing that, Dean. You're going to obviously start doing that on your show on Sirius XM. But I think we've got to also, encourage our listeners to start leaning on the rest of the media to use the word that the friggin' FBI is using, terrorism, to describe what happened on January 6th instead of, riot or insurrection or anything else, a terrorist act.
Right. It wasn't a riot. A riot sounds more organic. Yeah. But, Tom, what we're both talking about is framing, and it's something Republicans have done really well for a long time. Yeah. And Democrats, if they do well, it was an accident. I can assure you. It was not by design. Like, they stumbled on it and it actually worked, and people repeated it, and like, wow, that was great. Framing is so important. It doesn't win every argument, but it helps you. It gives you an advantage. And if you keep people debating within the frame we create, it helps us. So if you have them going, we're not that corrupt, well, that's not going to help them. But you've got them saying corrupt. And in this case, look, this is not me saying it was an act of domestic terrorism. It was the FBI director. He's testified more than once about it. If you look at the federal law, it's very clear it was an act of terrorism. Donald Trump incited an act of terrorism. That Donald Trump is, in my view, hence a terrorist. And we have Sean Hannity celebrating him 2 days ago on Fox News, and Republicans celebrating them. I guess too bad they can't find people in the Bin Laden family to have on.
Actually, they did.
Family to be on
yesterday.
They had,
3 days ago in Geneva, Switzerland, on Lake Geneva, Osama bin Laden's niece, I think her name is Noor bin Laden, was riding around in a boat just off, right off the shore of this resort, this castle resort where they were holding the meeting, carrying this giant flag that said Trump won.
Well,
honest to God,
you can judge Trump by his fans, I think, a little bit there. Yeah. And it's remarkable to see even polling showing more Republicans have a positive view of Putin over Joe Biden. But that makes sense because Trumpism at its core is a hatred of democracy, a rejection of democratic norms.
It's an embrace of authoritarianism.
Yeah, exactly, and cruelty. So they would like someone like Putin where his political enemies are dead or in jail. I think some of the GOP would be on board with that, and that's kind of frightening, but that's where we stand right now.
Yeah.
In January, as the FBI director and Merrick Garland on Tuesday gave a speech saying there's an elevated risk of domestic terrorism, and the two places it comes from, militia groups and white supremacists. That's who attacked us on January 6th. They're still out there. They're part of the GOP.
Absolutely, and they've completely aligned themselves with the Republican Party, and the Republican Party has completely aligned itself with them. It's bizarre. Dean Obeidallah, the Dean of Radio, deanofradio.com, in fact. The great Dean Obeidallah. Thanks for dropping by, Dean. It's great talking with you.
Nice. Same as here. Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, have a good one. Have a great one. And happy Juneteenth. It's 42 minutes past the hour on the Thom Hartmann Program. Back in just a few moments. Stick around.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
You can catch, by the way, Dean's show, I think it's 7 o'clock at night, something like that, on Sirius XM. It's in the evening, Eastern time. And welcome back, Jeff in Fort Dodge, Iowa. Hey, Jeff, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Early Happy Father's Day to you.
Oh yeah, thank you. That's this weekend too, isn't it?
Yeah.
I had forgotten. That's how busy my week has been.
Here in Iowa, we're getting hit. They're going after Biden's infrastructure plan. This organization called the American Action Network. Never heard of them. They're running ads with supposedly a businessman, and he calls it the Nancy Pelosi infrastructure plan, and only 10% of it is going to infrastructure. And it's amazing that they're running these ads and nobody is calling them out on it. I'd like to know who this, maybe Sean can find out, who's this American Action Network? Another infrastructure ad that's being run against Biden is one that says Biden's infrastructure plans wants to put out billions of dollars of electric cars. And guess where those batteries are made? They're made in China. And Biden is giving good jobs to China. And these people in Iowa are lapping this up like puppies with a bowl of milk.
Yeah. Yeah, you're there in Iowa. You're seeing these on TV. That's amazing. I've seen nothing like that here in Oregon, but I think they consider Oregon a lost cause. So these are probably local ad buys. I've heard of the American Action Network. I don't recall who funds it, but behind so much of this stuff is a relatively small handful of hardcore right-wing billionaires and multi-billionaires. But I don't want to speculate out loud. But thank you for the heads up on that, Jeff. That is grim news. Thank you. We'll see what we can find out. Diamond in Hollywood, California. Hey, Diamond, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. How are you doing?
Great. What's up?
Really good. I wanted to, first of all, thank you because you kind of gave a voice to a program that Councilman Erickson and I obviously have been trying to do, which is home vaccination. And
that is such a cool program.
It is. It's anybody in Los Angeles County can get one. They can call this number. It's 833-540-0473. And unfortunately, I never got to get up to see my dad, and he passed. But I wanted to say he loved your show. He was a Bernie before Bernie. He was an entertainment attorney that did the Smothers Brothers censorship brief. Among many other things. Mm-hmm. And he was into environmental rights and everything. He thought you were a great humanitarian. And I wanted to say happy Father's Day to you. And also, I wanted to say that there is a minority group. It's kind of a joke. It's a half-serious joke, but we are serious about it, that creatives, artists and musicians, actors, we are basically trying to push the old program that used to be a government program to employ musicians and actors.
Yeah, the old WPA.
Yes.
The Works Progress Administration. Yeah, that's great. That's great, Diamond. Keep it up, and thanks for the tip and the phone number on the vaccination, the home vaccination in LA. Thank you. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. Well, the Confederacy continues to live. Governor Tate Reeves, the governor of Mississippi, just signed a proclamation making April the Confederate Heritage Month in Mississippi. That's kind of the bad news. The good news is that it didn't get published on the state's websites. It got published over on Facebook, where there's a good contingent of racists and neo-Confederates to begin with. But what does this say about America, that a part of the country that literally was a police state, a fascist police state, there was no democracy left by 1861 in the South. It was completely controlled by a few thousand families who owned these massive plantations. And in my little riff that's over at ThomHartmann.com for the supporters of our program, I go through some of the details of it. Just the sad, sad history of the South. It is really worth checking out. It's over at ThomHartmann.com. I didn't. Okay. Welcome back. Anything Goes Friday here, and let's see. Brian in Omaha, Nebraska. Hey, Brian. Says you're a conservative.
Hi, Tom. How you doing?
What's on your mind?
I just want to discuss the border, basically the current state of the border going on. But before I do that, I watch your show, most weeks, and I appreciate your point of view. So I'm not a rabid conservative. I'm American First conservative. So I just don't know exactly why the border being wide open is not a...
Border's not wide open, Brian.
It is. So
the border crossings are closed. You've got a wall over a large chunk of it. You've got the Border Patrol, flying airplanes and driving cars. The border is not even remotely open, and anybody who tells you that is lying to you, Brian.
So basically, the figures came out last week by the Customs and Border Patrol Agency, and you can look it up. So in March of this year, we had 173,000 apprehended that trying to cross the border.
Yeah, border crossings are up. They always are in the spring. They were up every single year of the Trump administration. They have been going all the way back to probably Eisenhower. That happens. Is this a crisis for you, Brian? Are you overrun in Omaha?
We're seeing a lot more. We're seeing a lot more illegals up here. Where we have a huge
How do you know?
Meatpacking. I'm a sales rep in the Omaha area.
Okay.
So basically,
So you're seeing a lot of brown people? Is that what you're saying, or you were going to talk about the meatpacking company?
So I mean, we got a lot of meatpacking companies. I'm noticing a lot more on the street, and they're asking for donations. I mean, basically, they're sitting in corners, and they got signs up.
Well, you don't know if those people are citizens or not unless you engage them in conversation. Which I'm guessing you're not doing. But the bottom line, Brian, is twofold. Number one, if we want to stop refugees, there's two categories of people coming into this country. There's refugees and people who are basically seeking a better life. Refugees, we have laws that make it legal for people from other countries to come to the United States, even to enter the United States illegally. In other words, like to jump over the fence, and then present themselves to the police and say, I would like to have asylum. And we have a certain period of time, I don't recall right off the top of my head what it is, I think it's within a year, that we have to adjudicate them. Over 95% of them actually show up for their hearings because they are looking for an opportunity to stay here, because they are actual refugees. They are fleeing, gang violence or a lot of stuff that's actually being caused by climate change or by the Ronald Reagan policies back in the 80s when we blew up the governments of 3 Central American countries. So that is still echoing here. We can do something about that. We can go down and help fix those countries so that, I mean, just imagine, Brian, how bad would things have to get in Omaha, Nebraska for you to pack up your wife and kids, assuming you have such, or your family, your local family, whatever it may be, and say, we're going to flee Omaha. We're going to walk all the way to the Canadian border. We're going to present ourselves at the Canadian border to the mounted police, the Mounties, and we're going to beg for asylum because it is so intolerable here. What would it take to cause you to do that, Brian?
If I was in their position, I'd do the same thing. However, we cannot be a destination magnet for every refugee in the world.
So what would it take to do that? What would it take for you to leave Omaha as a refugee? How bad would it have to get? Would you have to have your life threatened? Would you have to have one of your kids raped? Would you have to have somebody in your family killed? What would it take?
Yeah, I'd get the hell out of here in a second.
Okay.
I don't blame them.
So number one, with regard to the refugees, which both by U.S. law and international law, we have to accept and provide a judicial process for, okay? So you want to stop the refugees? Let's rebuild Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. And strengthen our essentially contract, our treaty with Mexico. Most of these refugees are actually not ending up here. They're ending up in Mexico. And let's do something about climate change. Let's get the carbon out of the atmosphere so that you've got thousands and I believe it's hundreds of thousands of farmers, particularly in Guatemala and Honduras, who have been pushed off their land in the last 5 years because climate change has turned their farms into deserts. So let's do something about that, number one. Number two, the second kind of people who are coming to the United States without legal process are people who are just looking for a job. And you mentioned your meatpacking plants there in Omaha, Nebraska. I don't know if you're old enough to remember, Brian, but it used to be working in a meatpacking plant was a damn good job. You were paid the equivalent in today's money of 40, 30, 40, 50 bucks an hour, depending on how long you'd been there. You had a union. Up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, or maybe it wasn't Green Bay, but up in Wisconsin, you had a substantial meatpacking union. Chicago was the center where all the rail lines came in, and then they would process the dead animals, the meat, in nearby communities, including Wisconsin. And the Wisconsin meatpacking union had so much money that they started a football team that today we call the Green Bay Packers. That was started by a union. They were meat packers. So why is it that the meat packers now are people who are here without documentation? It's because Ronald Reagan in 1986 stopped enforcing the law against wealthy white employers hiring people who are not citizens. And as a result of that, we actually, on this program, I had one of these newspapers about, 6, 7 years ago. Somebody sent me one, these broadsheet newspapers printed in Spanish that were being distributed south of the border saying workers wanted, in Spanish, workers wanted at Acme Meatpacking in Omaha, Nebraska, right? And it was nothing, it was like one of these weekend shopping, newspapers that you get with all the local ads for the local stores and people trying to sell the old used bed from their bedroom or whatever. And this was... This is what Reagan brought us. Yeah. So why not just, we still have laws on the books against that. We just haven't enforced them since 1986.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm a 51 Gen Xer. I grew up under Reagan. So I guess my point right now is we had, and you're right, those jobs were great. They paid a lot of money. And actually, Tom?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And Reagan destroyed those jobs because he was trying to destroy unions. I mean, this was part of the Republican campaign, and he was very successful. When Reagan came into office, a third of America was unionized. By the time the Reagan-Bush administration was over, we were down to 11%. We're at 6% right now in the private workforce. And part of destroying the unions was inviting people into the country to replace union workers. And no president since Ronald Reagan has reversed that, including Trump. Trump was not willing to put white employers in prison either.
Here's my point. I don't think we're that far off on this issue. I mean, basically, even Obama and, Barbara Jordan, I think it was 1993, she said, we have got to have a system of laws. So
I agree.
I'm not against.
I agree. I'm calling for law and order. Oh, God. I can't believe it.
I guess I want the best jobs for legal Americans.
I agree.
Flooding this market is doing nothing but giving
and legal immigrants. And legal refugees. People who, we want immigration into the United States. Typically, we have about 1 million immigrants a year, although during the Trump administration it was down to, tens of thousands. And it helps America. It makes America a vibrant and diverse place. But no country can withstand, a huge sustained assault. But that's not what's going on with 100,000 people coming across the border. It's not like the millions, who were fleeing into Southern Europe as a consequence of climate change and the Arab Spring. This is not a crisis, but it is a problem, and we do need to address it rationally, reasonably. And Brian, thank you for the rational, reasonable call. We'll be back. Lamar Waldron is going to drop by. It's the 50th anniversary of the war on drugs.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann.
While Reverend Martin Luther
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit delivery service. More information at HelloFresh.com, code TOM. CB Distillery for sleeping and pain relief. More info at cbdistillery.com, code TOM. Annie's Kit Clubs, creativity delivered right to your door. More info is available at annieskitclubs.com/Tom. EasyFlow, personal air filtration system. Fresh air anywhere. More info at easyflowusa.com, code TOM. Masterclass with world-class instructors. More info at masterclass.com/Hartman. And Dinovite, only the best all-natural pet supplements. More info at dinovite.com.
not really. No, take that back, because we're still way behind. Free Speech TV needs your help and needs it today, especially today. And in fact, hey, you know, there's this end of drive challenge. Frontline funder Mike in San Francisco is doubling donations up to $5,000. Plus, we're at the end of the challenge week, which is where frontline funders Sandy and Stewart in Sunnyvale, California, say that if we hit our goals at the end of this week, they're going to kick in another $5,000 too. So your contribution, but you know, in particular, with Mike in San Francisco, your donation will be doubled, up to $5,000. Now that's substantial. I realize there are not a lot of $5,000 donors out there, but there might be some $500 donors or some $100 donors or some $50 donors or some $5 donors who would love to see their donation doubled on this last day of the Free Speech TV fund drive, pledge drive. And this is your opportunity right now to double your, what's the old gum ad? I'm not going to sing it, I promise. But your opportunity to double your impact, double your pleasure, and double your fun by calling now 877-378-8669 and making your contribution on this last day of this pledge drive. Free Speech TV is in a bit of a hole, needs your help digging out of it. And so, you know, the way to do that, very simple, very straightforward. Make a one-time gift of whatever you can, and then, you know, look at your budget. And if you're inclined, you know, if you get value from Free Speech TV, if you're a regular viewer of this program or other programs, then, you know, look at your budget and say, well, okay, I can afford this every month, or I can afford that every month. And, you know, I'll do that for a year and see how it goes, and see if Free Speech TV is, you know, if they stay on the air, hopefully we'll still be here. I don't think we're in danger of going away anytime soon, but, or at least I can't speak for Free Speech TV, but I don't think they're in danger of going away anytime soon. But it is tight. It is tight. And I mean that very seriously. And your help is needed. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV, there are volunteers standing by, manning the phones, you know, as they say in the fundraising world, ready to take your call, ready to take your contribution. And whatever you give, whether it's $5, $50, $500, $20, $200, $2,000, whatever it may be, up to $5,000, it will be doubled by Mike in San Francisco. Thank you, Mike, for that. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and put down your marker on the right side of history. Be part of this one single progressive television network, the only one in America. Be part of America's #1 progressive television network. #1. Yeah, we're winners. You can be part of this. Call now, 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. There are, of course, goodies, you know, premiums. When you make your contribution with a $20 gift, there's your choice of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Take Action, Make History Pride sticker, or the I'm Vaccinated sticker, which, you know, will get you a smile from the maitre d' at the restaurant when you show up, I'm sure. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV Real Change Comes from the Grassroots tote bag in 2 elegant designs. Your choice, fine to go with any outfit. With a $75 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann Collector's Item mug, the official program mug. The only place you can get it is here, and the only time you can get it is now. With a $100 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV face mask, actually 2 of them, or the Wilmington on Fire DVD. Excuse me. With a $120 gift, you get an autographed copy of my book on oligarchy, the hidden history of American oligarchy. Basically, you know, who's conspiring to destroy American democracy, how, and how can we stop them? That's the hidden history of American oligarchy. Or the Free Speech TV Justice t-shirt, stylishly designed by Free Speech TV viewer Barry. With a $240 gift, you have your choice of the Reclaiming Democracy book set, Hidden History of Oligarchy, The Hidden History of Monopolies, or the participate in our meet and greet. Come hang out with us in a Zoom call. Those are always fascinating. With the $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann Summer box set with the University bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV bumper sticker, the Take Action, Make History Pride sticker, the Free Speech TV Real Change Comes in the Grassroots tote bag, the Wilmington on Fire DVD, and the collector's item Thom Hartmann mug. And with $1,000, come to Portland and hang out with us for an hour in the third hour of our show, and then we'll go down the street and have a really nice lunch. So that's the pitch. The bottom line, whatever you give when you call right now, 877-378-8669, will be doubled. So please call now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. Today is the 50th anniversary of Nixon's war on drugs, which has cost America trillions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of American lives lost or destroyed. And for that anniversary, on that anniversary, we have with us my old buddy Lamar Waldron, and Lamar and I worked on a couple of books together, but his book, apropos of all this, his most recent book, Watergate, The Hidden History, Nixon, the Mafia, and the CIA. Lamar, welcome back. Let's just get right into this. Nixon declared the war on drugs. Why 50 years ago today?
Well, the main reason was that the newspapers and television news were full of reports that a large percentage of the troops in Vietnam were coming home addicted. But at the time, were in the 15 to 20% range. Revisionists had lowered those several years back, one person in particular to more like 10%, but then other people critiqued his work and pointed out a study that the U.S.
Lamar, your phone is popping in and out. I don't know if there's anything you can do about that. Get closer to something or whatever, but I keep losing words. I understood you to say that 10 to 20% of the American soldiers coming back from Vietnam, this would have been in 1971 if it was 50 years, were addicted to heroin?
Exactly. And like I say, the most recent analysis kind of sticks with the 15%.
Yeah. Lamar, your phone is going in and out. I'm going to have to put you on hold and let you talk to Joyce and figure out what's going on here. And in the meantime, and maybe we can revisit this in a few minutes. But that just doesn't work. Let me pick up some phone calls here while you guys are working this out. Ron in Durango, Colorado. Hey, Ron, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. This has to do with the voter count, the audit that's happening in Phoenix and Maricopa County. Nobody in the news media has ever used the word data mining. And I remember back in 2016, Trump had tried to get states to turn over the voter roll information to his campaign. And of course, the court said no. And so now they're using a great example, I guess, of 4 million people, very diverse city, to try to figure out the voting habits of people. And they're going to use that in their algorithms when it comes to 2022 and 2024. No one's really talking about that.
Yeah, this is the ultimate data mining when you actually have all the voter records from from an entire election, from every single voter, right down to what their name is, where they live, what their address is, who they voted for. I mean,
the demographic group. Yeah, because some people may have voted for Biden, but they may have voted for the Republican congressman in that district.
They also now have a hit list for people to remove from the voting rolls.
Exactly.
I mean, this is breathtaking. What's going on with this fraud? They're calling it a fraud in much of the media, and it is. This is just beyond beyond. Anyhow, Ron, thank you. Thanks.
Illegal.
Yeah, thanks for the heads up on that.
Illegal, and if it's illegal, then why doesn't the Justice Department step in? I mean, we need to start calling it for what it is.
Well, I've been saying that from day one. This is a federal law says that within 22 months of a federal election, the ballots must be secured and the voting machines must be secured. They are not secured right now. This is a violation of federal law, and Merrick Garland and the FBI should be in Arizona right now taking this thing apart, and they should also be in this cabin in Montana where they're inspecting things. It is just so wrong. Ron, thank you for the call. Mike in Pittman, Florida. Hey, Mike, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. Happy Juneteenth. Love the book club. Love reading. Okay, first off, Donald Trump was the worst thing that happened, and we're in real trouble. But rather than, I live in a really red state, multi-generational Floridian, Old South, blah, blah, blah. Rather than look at all the intellectually challenged Trumpians over the 4 years of Trump, I had to remind myself every time I looked up there and saw him talking, I had to say, see, Mike, that's what any tiny bit of racism does left in your soul. You need to do some soul searching, Mike, and root out every little bit. And you need to, and I've really had to ask myself, every time I look at somebody who looks different than me, do I feel the same way?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that I'm taking a little good, in my personal journey. I had to do some soul searching.
Yeah, good on you, Mike. I mean, this is what, in particular, white people who were born before, 2000, who spent, I spent my childhood watching television programs and cartoons and things that just constantly denigrated black people, and reading totally whitewashed American history. And, and it leaves a mark. Frankly, it leaves a racist mark on you and on your soul. And you have to consciously acknowledge that and notice it in order to get past it. I mean, it's
not an easy thing to change overnight, which I'm not looking for sympathy or empathy or anything like that. I'm just saying that it takes work to really change yourself. And, when you ask the question, how could somebody say stop the war in Vietnam and then move 22 miles to the west of me in the villages, and then they vote for Donald Trump? And, they were against the civil rights workers being murdered in Mississippi. And you're like, what happened here? Yeah. There was a little bit of racism that was manipulated through when they retired Fox News. I guess now it's Newsmax, 4chan, 8chan, whatever it is.
Tucker Carlson has become like the official spokesman for white supremacy in America. I mean, it's breathtaking.
I've watched a couple people in my life that when they retired, they watched Fox News in the evening or whatever. But once they retired and started watching the Fox and Friends and all that stuff, because, I'm a recovering conservative myself, they really started going radically crazy. And I could no longer talk to them in any way. And I also wanted to say you had a caller a few weeks ago. He said, why don't we call them out? Man, I spent the first 2 years fighting with my friends and family. And if I bring it up, it's going to, I suffer from emotional trauma as well. I can't spend the rest of my life fighting with all my friends and family members and not talk to them ever again.
Yeah, I totally get it.
Sometimes I just have to.
Mike, I got to run. I'm sorry, but, I thank you. Thanks for the acknowledgement of your own, past, I guess would be the way of saying it. And, we all of us need to be doing that. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
I believe we have Lamar on a better phone line. Hopefully we will return with him shortly. Stick around. And welcome back. Let's see here. I'm going to pick up Lamar on the other side of this break in 4 minutes so that our SiriusXM listeners can hear him as well. And then just hold him over the break at the bottom of the hour. So Lamar will be with us in 4 minutes. Stick around. Amy in Los Angeles. Hey, Amy, you're listening on KPFK. What's on your mind?
Yes, thank you, Tom. I love your show. I learned a lot of history from you. I wonder, why is Biden insisting so much about having bipartisan agreement? By the time he gets them online, it's going to be 22. Republicans are going to say, well, see, you didn't accomplish anything, and they're going to take over the House and the Senate. Why
That's
is
Mitch
he
McConnell's
insisting?
strategy.
Why can't he? Excuse me?
That's Mitch McConnell's strategy. What you're looking at right here, Amy, are two colliding political strategies. Mitch McConnell, on the one hand, is trying to drag things out as long as he can until we're into crazy season, and also giving, like this American Action Network that somebody called in and said they're just carpet bombing Iowa with ads saying that the Build Back Better infrastructure plan is only 10% infrastructure, and it's all, it's Nancy Pelosi's dream list and all this stuff. Turns out that group shares an office with Karl Rove, and they're principally funded by pharma, by the big pharmaceutical companies.
The man has no shame.
So,
he has no shame.
So number one, you've got...
Comment.
No, well, let me just finish
one
this.
more quick comment, since you don't have much time to listen to me. A few days ago, you talked about corruption. What really is the most destructive thing against government. You are absolutely right. The only thing that brought down the Armenian government of previous government and Pashinyan came over was because he talked about corruption, and people really believed in him, and that's what brought down the government. You're absolutely right. Corruption is the biggest evil of all countries, It
happens all over the world, and people know that they're getting ripped off. But to finish that thought, what we are looking at right now is two dueling, competing political strategies, one from McConnell and the other from Biden. McConnell's strategy is delay, delay, delay until it will become politically impossible to pass any kind of big legislation that really helps the American people. And that way, when the 2024 election comes, or even the 2022 election, people will say, well, what has Biden done for me? What have the Democrats done for me? Nothing. So screw them. I'm not going to show up and vote. That's McConnell's strategy. Biden's strategy is he wants to pass these very, very large pieces of legislation, and he's pushing them really, really hard. But he also knows that he has to get the American people on board. And in order to do that, he has to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the Republicans are not honest brokers, that they're not actually participating in the political process. They are purely obstructionists. All they're doing is obstruction. And in order to demonstrate that in a way that even Joe Manchin can't refute any longer, he has to keep tossing opportunities to Republicans so that they can dump on them, so that they can knock them down. And so, that's what he's been doing, and him and Chuck Schumer. And but it's a very, very delicate dance on Biden's part, because he's going to hit a point, probably before he's convinced America that Mitch McConnell is just, not playing by any kind of honest rules. He's going to hit that point. But he has to hit that point before it's not politically possible to pass big legislation. So I'm expecting something to happen in the next week or two. We'll see. Amy, I got to run, but thank you for the call. We're going to pick up Lamar right after this break. We'll be back literally in 1 minute. It's 18 minutes past the hour. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. We're available on SiriusXM, Free Speech TV, Pacifica, commercial stations nationwide, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker to listen to the Thom Hartmann Program. Hey, we have a couple of special things over at TomHartmann.com and HartmannReport.com. Of course, at HartmannReport.com, every single day, well, 6 days a week, Sunday accepted, I write a rant about an issue of the day that I think is important. Louise and I work on these together. We get them out typically around 6 in the morning Pacific time. And you'll find that at HartmannReport.com. It's free. You can sign up for it. There's no ads, whatever. But also over at TomHartmann.com, we have a video every week for the supporters of our program. And the one this week is about how Wisconsin is trying to remove, in fact, they just got permission from their Supreme Court to remove 188,000 people from the voting rolls because they haven't voted in 4 years. This highlights the importance of getting to know who is your state representative, who is your state senator, and communicating with them regularly. It's all over at HartmannReport.com and TomHartmann.com. And welcome back. Let's try this again. Lamar Waldron is on the line with us. He is the author, most recently, of Watergate, The Hidden History, Nixon, the Mafia, and the CIA. I shouldn't say most recently, most relevantly, the definitive biography of, what happened during the tail end of the Nixon years and throughout, actually, the Nixon years. And so, Lamar, you were telling us that Nixon declared the war on drugs 50 years ago today, in part because 10 to 20% of the Americans coming back from Vietnam are coming back as heroin addicts, and heroin addiction thus was spreading across the country and getting all kinds of publicity. Where do we go from there?
And that's exactly right. Two important points to note, though. One is in Nixon's first year in office, after he stole the 68 election, many people would say by committing treason, he had the military crack down on marijuana use in Vietnam. So there was a bizarre situation where in many cases it was easier for a soldier over there to get heroin to help him relax than it was to get marijuana, which is just ridiculous, that they cracked down on marijuana like that. The other thing being, the reason it was so easy to get heroin over there was because it was being sold through the government-funded service clubs where the soldiers would go for their R&R, their rest and recreation.
Not officially.
Well, that was another scandal that started raising up, and it was called the service club scandal. Now, it wasn't officially like, give me a Coke and some smack. It wasn't like that, but it was so incredibly widespread that became its own scandal. So you might wonder why or how, would heroin be sold so readily in service clubs throughout Vietnam and the adjacent countries like Thailand and stuff? Well, the guy who handled getting the heroin into those service clubs worked for the number one godfather that Richard Nixon had a relationship with at that time, a guy by the name of Santo Trafficante.
Oh, my God, the guy who ordered the hit on John Kennedy.
Well, who admitted he ordered the hit on John Kennedy, and whose father created what your older listeners, like you and I, will remember, something called the French Connection. And the French Connection was how the heroin was trafficked from the Middle East and then through France and Marseille and then into the United States, sometimes smuggled on cars and stuff like that. Yeah. And so, so Trafficante had been a big supporter of Richard Nixon since the 1960 election, when Trafficante and his heroin partner in Louisiana, Texas, and Mississippi, named Carlos Marcello, they gave Nixon in the 60 campaign $1 million bribe, basically, to keep Hoffa out of prison, to help Nixon get elected, because Nixon was like the mafia's guy. The mafia had free reign in the United States and Cuba in the 50s. The Kennedys... When
Nixon was vice president.
Right, when Nixon was vice president, Eisenhower, who wasn't in the greatest health for a lot of, especially the latter part of his term, was the president. And it was only Senator John F. Kennedy and his brother Robert Kennedy, who helped to spearhead these Senate hearings, that got any attention at all on the mafia and on particular people like Santo Trafficante, Carlos Marcello, and Jimmy Hoffa in the late 50s. That's how JFK became a presidential candidate. So Trafficante had a long tie-in with Nixon. Part of that deal in '60 involved the CIA mafia plots to assassinate Fidel Castro right before the election. So it's like a package deal. So Nixon had been working with Trafficante then. At the very time he's declaring war on drugs, two things Nixon is up to. One, he's negotiating another $1 million bribe from Santo Trafficante, and Carlos Marcellus was all confirmed by Time magazine several years after the events, and that would be to release Jimmy Hoffa from prison, but not let him resume control of the Teamsters, because Hoffa was a powerful figure, right?
Right.
And Traficante and Marcello and the other mobsters, they liked the guy that Frank Fitzsimmons, who was like a pushover compared to Jimmy Hoffa. So they didn't want Hoffa,
which is why they vanished him.
The Teamsters. So there was $1 million bribe being negotiated, and here's the worst part of all. I mean, this just puts Nixon up in the pantheon and may make him worse than Trump. Only history will tell. Alexander Haig became Nixon's last chief of staff, General Alexander Haig, later Secretary of State, if you recall, under Ronald Reagan. Alexander Haig, was a conservative guy, right? He was a career military guy. He discovered that Richard Nixon was getting regular, pretty much monthly briefcases full of cash from Southeast Asia that were originating with the people working with Traficante, trafficking the heroin through the service clubs. So Nixon was literally, and Haig didn't want to believe that. So he went to what I believe, and your veteran listeners will know this better than I think it was called back then something like the Criminal Investigative Service or something like that with the Army. It was their NCIS, basically.
Right.
And Alexander Haig, who was Nixon's last chief of staff, but he was also still a general, he was able to get someone assigned to him to basically follow the guy who was bringing these monthly briefcases full of cash to Nixon, to follow that guy back and then follow him back to the U.S. And so he literally, Alexander Haig, was able to confirm this. Now, the problem for your listeners is that most of them have never heard this. So why haven't they heard it? Well, it was literally front-page news in a lot of major American newspapers 2 years and 4 months after Nixon's resignation. And people who didn't live through it, like you and I did, I mean, people were so tired of Nixon and Watergate, just like people are tired of Trump in many ways. After all that stuff, they just wanted to move on. So
amazing.
So
Lamar, can you stick around?
Story. Sure. We have a 6-minute break here at the bottom of the hour. I want to talk to you for another 10 or 15 minutes, and then I'll get back to it, and then goes Friday here. So Lamar Waldron is with us. If you want to get the real story, get his book, Watergate, The Hidden History, Nixon, the Mafia, and the CIA. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
We'll be back with Lamar Waldron on the other side of this break. It's the 50th anniversary of the Watergate, of the Nixon declaring the war on drugs, in addition to Juneteenth. No, not really. No, take that back, because we're still way behind. Free Speech TV needs your help and needs it today, especially today. And in fact, there's this end of drive challenge. Frontline funder Mike in San Francisco is doubling donations up to $5,000. Plus, we're at the end of the challenge week, which is where frontline funders Sandy and Stewart in Sunnyvale, California, say that if we hit our goals at the end of this week, they're going to kick in another $5,000 too. So your contribution, but in particular, with Mike in San Francisco, your donation will be doubled up to $5,000. Now that's substantial. I realize there are not a lot of $5,000 donors out there, but there might be some $500 donors or some $100 donors or some $50 donors or some $5 donors who would love to see their donation doubled on this last day of the Free Speech TV fund drive, pledge drive. And this is your opportunity right now to double your, what's the old gum ad? I'm not going to sing it, I promise. But your opportunity to double your impact, double your pleasure, and double your fun by calling now, 877-378-8669, and making your contribution on this last day of this pledge drive. Free Speech TV is in a bit of a hole, needs your help digging out of it. And so, you know, the way to do that, very simple, very straightforward. Make a one-time gift of whatever you can, and then, you know, look at your budget. And if you're inclined, you know, if you get value from Free Speech TV, if you're a regular viewer of this program or other programs, then, you know, look at your budget and say, well, okay, I can afford this every month, or I can afford that every month. And, you know, I'll do that for a year and see how it goes, and see if Free Speech TV is, you know, if they stay on the air, hopefully we'll still be here. I don't think we're in danger of going away anytime soon, but, or at least I can't speak for Free Speech TV, but I don't think they're in danger of going away anytime soon. But it is tight. It is tight. And I mean that very seriously. And your help is needed. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV, there are volunteers standing by, manning the phones, you know, as they say in the fundraising world, ready to take your call, ready to take your contribution. And whatever you give, whether it's $5, $50, $500, $20, $200, $2,000, whatever it may be, up to $5,000, it will be doubled by Mike in San Francisco. Thank you, Mike, for that. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and put down your marker on the right side of history. Be part of this one single progressive television network, the only one in America. Be part of America's #1 progressive television network. #1. Yeah, we're winners. You can be part of this. Call now, 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. There are, of course, goodies, you know, premiums. When you make your contribution with a $20 gift, there's your choice, the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Take Action, Make History Pride sticker, or the I'm Vaccinated sticker, which, you know, will get you a smile from the maitre d' at the restaurant when you show up, I'm sure. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV Real Change Comes from the Grassroots tote bag in 2 elegant designs. Your choice, fine to go with any outfit. With a $75 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann Collector's Item mug, the official program mug. The only place you can get it is here, and the only time you can get it is now. With a $100 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV face mask, actually 2 of them, or the Wilmington on Fire DVD. Excuse me. With a $120 gift, you get an autographed copy of my book on oligarchy, the hidden history of American oligarchy. Basically, you know, who's conspiring to destroy American democracy, how, and how can we stop them? That's the hidden history of American oligarchy. Or the Free Speech TV Justice T-shirt, stylishly designed by Free Speech TV viewer Barry. With a $240 gift, you have your choice of the Reclaiming Democracy book set, The Hidden History of Oligarchy, The Hidden History of Monopolies, or the participate in our meet and greet, come hang out with us in a Zoom call. Those are always fascinating. With the $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann Summer box set with the University bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV bumper sticker, the Take Action, Make History Pride sticker, the Free Speech TV Real Change Comes in the Grassroots tote bag, the Wilmington on Fire DVD, and the collector's item Thom Hartmann mug. And with $1,000, come to Portland and hang out with us for an hour in the third hour of our show, and then we'll go down the street and have a really nice lunch. So that's the pitch. The bottom line, whatever you give when you call right now, 877-378-8669, will be doubled. So please call now. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. Hey, we have a new video over at ThomHartmann.com. It's about this movement that has, it's being characterized in the media as being just, fringe wackadoodles, crazy people on YouTube, stuff like that, who are talking about how Democrats are torturing children to get the adrenochrome out of them, and Hillary Clinton is eating babies, and the ship in the Suez Canal, and how, and the really interesting one now, how if you get the vaccine for COVID, that it will change your race. Yes, something that will make white people absolutely hysterical. The problem is, this isn't just the Flat Earth Society. These aren't the people that we used to laugh at. This isn't just a few crazies on the edge. They just had a convention in Oklahoma, a serious convention where they were calling for Democrats to be put in front of a firing squad and shot. You need to check this out. It's over at ThomHartmann.com. Lamar Waldron on the line with us. He's the author of Watergate, The Hidden History, which is a really serious book. I'm holding it in my hand. It's like a large brick. And so, Lamar, so we've got Richard Nixon involved with Trafficante and Marcello, who were running heroin into Vietnam and addicting 10 to 20% of our U.S. returning service members in 1971. And then Trafficante and Marcello sending literally suitcases full of money every month to the White House, to Richard Nixon, to keep this thing going. And Al Haig, Nixon's chief of staff, the general, finding out about it and freaking out. What next? From there to the actual declaration 50 years ago today, and by the way, 50 years ago yesterday was the anniversary of the Watergate break-in, the principal title of your book, Watergate: The Hidden History.
Which, by the way, occurred almost exactly a year after Nixon declared the war on drugs. I mean, that was one busy year.
Yes, yeah. If I said before, I meant after. So where do we go from Nixon's in the White House? He's getting bribes from these two mafia godfathers who are running heroin into Southeast Asia, specifically to sell it through the service clubs to American GIs, which is producing 20% of returning GIs being addicted to heroin, which is producing a heroin epidemic in the United States that presumably Trafficante and Marcello are more than happy to meet the need of. Where do we go from that point that you've so well established to his declaration of the war on drugs and the actual implementation of it, and John Ehrlichman's later comments about it?
Well, of course, in 71, when he makes that declaration in June, Nixon was the kind of guy who was always running for re-election. I mean, he literally always was running. So he's got his eye on the 72 election then. And as one of his two top aides, there were Haldeman and Ehrlichman, John Ehrlichman, told a journalist in 1994, he said that the Nixon White House, after Nixon got in, had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. Now, that's a quote. Okay, I'm reading you the quote right now. And he told this journalist in 1994, you understand what I'm saying? We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or blacks, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities, close quote, because they weren't going to vote for Nixon anyway.
Right.
So that incredible amount of racism, because of course Nixon was able to steal the 68 election, he got it close enough so his treason worked by using racism, using what was called then and is called now the Southern strategy, which is now the de facto way that Republicans gin up votes.
It's basically all the GOP has anymore.
Well, that's exactly right.
I mean, we saw this yesterday with Roy Blunt when he came out and said, it's not the Joe Manchin compromise anymore. It's the Stacey Abrams, let's put a black woman in front of, it's like, come on, racist much, Senator Blunt? Anyhow, back to you, Lamar. Sorry.
But again, remember, it worked for Nixon in 68, and Nixon, even though the 72 election was more than 4 months after the Watergate arrests, that were front page news in every major, daily newspaper in the country, right? So it wasn't like people didn't know that Watergate happened. People knew it happened. They knew people involved with the White House were arrested for it. I mean, it was just pretty clear who benefited, and yet Nixon won the 72 election in a massive landslide.
Right.
So Republicans are using the same tricks that Nixon used in the 72 election and the 68 election, but he got 68 close enough to steal, and he won 72 overwhelming. So your listeners should kind of keep that in mind. But I have to say, it actually gets worse. So he's using racism and this war on drugs basically as a political tool to help him get reelected, in addition to the plumbers who were one of several groups he had that were doing all sorts of felonies and break-ins, and I mean, it was just a massive criminal enterprise, the whole Nixon administration, which is why 60 people were indicted or convicted or pled guilty, and 2 of his attorneys general, would be convicted. One would go to prison. So, but it actually gets worse than all this. Okay, it actually gets worse. So let's zip through Watergate and get right up to Nixon is being pressured to resign. I think there's a very good case to be made that Al Haig's knowledge of the secret monthly bribes from the heroin trafficking to our servicemen and women in Southeast Asia, I think that Al Haig was able to use that, and I outlined the circumstantial case, to get Nixon to resign and to forge that deal for a pardon. Because Nixon knew he needed that pardon. I think the deal was cut for the pardon even before, and there was circumstantial evidence to back it up. So, and get this, Nixon was, when he was debating whether or not to resign, he hadn't decided yet in July of 74. And so when he was debating whether or not to resign, and resisting it, by the way, he was looking at spending millions of dollars of taxpayers' money to refurbish a big Florida mansion to serve as a better winter White House for him, and that big Florida mansion was called Mar-a-Lago.
Oh, my God.
So, I mean, the parallels to Trump are just ridiculous. But
well, Roger Stone was in tight with Nixon at that point in time, as was Roy Cohn, and those 2 guys have been with Trump for throughout his political career. Well, Roy Cohn is dead, but Roy Cohn was his lawyer back in the day.
Nixon was the first person to predict that Donald Trump would be president one day, because Roger Stone introduced Nixon to Donald Trump. I think it was around 1980. Trump was using Roy Cohn, was literally Trump's #1 mentor. I mean, Trump admits that. So this festering disease from that war on drugs, that it just keeps cropping up, and it would crop up again in the 80s. But even before we get to that, there were murders involved in all of this. So remember, I said
what?
There were murders involved in all of this. So remember, Nixon's ties to Trafficante go back to 1960s. Nixon's ties to the mafia go back to his first run for Congress back in 1946 with the L.A. Mafia and Mickey Cohen. But his ties to Trafficante go back to 1960 and that election and the CIA mafia plots and that involved Marcello and a Chicago mob boss, not a godfather, by the name of Sam Giancana, and Giancana's man in Hollywood and Las Vegas by the name of Johnny Roselli. Well, after Nixon finally resigns and he gets his pardon, Congress finally gets wind of these CIA mafia plots, and they're starting to dig into it.
These are plots to kill Castro.
Right, to kill Castro. A senator by the name of Frank Church, and on his committee is Gary Hart, and Richard Schweiker. And so, they're starting to dig into this, and they're subpoenaing people like Sam Giancana and Johnny Roselli to testify. And by the way, Jimmy Hoffa had a small role in those plots as well, and we've talked about the big bribes, the 2 different $1 million bribes about Hoffa. So, and they're talking about subpoenaing Hoffa as well. Well, guess what happens to Sam Giancana before he can testify? He's murdered in a hit that's connected to Santo Trafficante. Johnny wrote, and then just a matter of weeks after Sam Giancana is murdered, and that was front page news across America, because most people had just found out about these CIA mafia plots. And then Jimmy Hoffa disappears before he can testify, and his disappearance is linked to Santo Trafficante. And then after Johnny Roselli has very carefully testified and tried to avoid angering Santo Trafficante and Marcello, but eventually he just keeps getting dragged back before that committee for secret testimony. But it's known. It's in executive session, the same way that Trump's White House attorney
Don McGahn,
yeah, the way he just testified. So he testified, just it wasn't on TV. And so Johnny Roselli, he vanishes right after a meeting, just within days of his last meeting with Santo Trafficante, and then his body, this Senate witness, I think he's one of the first Senate witnesses ever murdered, is found, floating, dismembered and floating in a 55-gallon oil drum. And so that even has an effect. Now, that does have an effect on Richard Nixon. So a year after Nixon had resigned and flown off in his helicopter and stuff like that, Nixon finally reemerges from seclusion in a very public way at a golf tournament in Southern California, where Nixon is playing golf with the two top suspects in Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance, and this is just within a couple of months after Hoffa was murdered. So, did Nixon love the money he was getting from Trafficante for all the heroin and all the drugs? Sure, but he knew what Trafficante was capable of. I don't think he knew details, but I think he knew that.
So Nixon thought his life was at risk if he squealed, basically?
Exactly. So you make nice by playing golf with these two close associates of Santo Trafficante in public at this golf course. And I tell you, when you read like the New York Times article about that golf tournament, or Stephen Ambrose wrote this mostly pretty good, except he left out a lot of the mafia, 3-volume biography of Nixon. When you read the Times or the Ambrose 3-volume biography of Nixon, it just like comes out of the blue. It's like and it didn't really penetrate the national consciousness because it was just so bizarre.
Right.
Why would Nixon? But you're exactly right. He didn't want to get killed. He wanted to show he was going to keep his mouth shut and play nice, and he did. So Nixon had a guy. Nixon's best friend was a mafia associate named Bibi Rebozo, who had a little private bank down in Miami that basically only serviced mafia-type people, and they did business with Switzerland. So while Nixon was president, all this illicit money was held and laundered by the mob associate best friend of Nixon, Bibi Rebozo. And then after Nixon is no longer president and he's kind of away from that spotlight, a guy that you and I know, a good investigative journalist in many ways by the name of Anthony Summers, was able to document that Nixon started making annual trips to Switzerland to go check on his money at this Swiss bank.
Whoa.
So,
Lamar,
Nixon,
can you stick around for a few more minutes?
Sure.
Okay.
There's some more great stuff to tell you.
Okay, we're hitting a break here. It's 48 minutes past the hour. We will be back with Lamar Waldron, his book, Watergate, The Hidden History, Nixon, the Mafia, and the CIA. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit ThomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Yesterday, the 49th anniversary of the Watergate break-in. Today, the 50th anniversary of Nixon declaring the war on drugs. And of course, it's Juneteenth. What a day. And And welcome back. So, Lamar, we will recap after the break for our SiriusXM listeners, but give me keep going.
Well, so by the end of the 70s, Nixon's in great shape. He's living in that incredible spread overlooking the Pacific Ocean. You know, he's got his money that his best friend had kept for him. He stayed out of jail. He's seen a new Republican president get elected, and vice president, and
Reagan.
and Bush, and so he's looking pretty good. But I think it's really important to note a lot of your listeners, I hope, are aware of something called the cocaine-Contra scandal, part of the Iran-Contra scandal of the 1980s. Mm-hmm. And that was where the death squads that Reagan and Bush were backing down in Nicaragua and Central America and El Salvador were basically raising money and making money on the side by smuggling drugs. And so in many ways, what Nixon did in the early 70s with his drug deals with Trafficante, I think really laid the groundwork for what happened with the CIA-sanctioned drug dealing in the mid-'80s, because a lot of the Cuban exiles who were involved in those activities had literally worked for Nixon and his campaign and his dirty tricks operation.
Right, and let's be very clear: the Nixon mafia CIA plots to assassinate Castro had one main purpose, which was to reinstall the mafia back in charge of the island of Cuba.
Exactly right. Well, to make Nixon president, because we'd have U.S. troops fighting in Cuba, and who's going to vote for that young, inexperienced JFK?
Right.
When you had this 8-year vice president, and you're exactly right. It would put the mafia back in charge with their
specifically Trafficante.
Right, and he was the biggest casino owner in Cuba once they ran out Meyer Lansky. But many of the Cuban exiles involved, and some of the CIA agents involved in the Iran-Contra affair and the cocaine smuggling aspects of it, they trace all the way back to the CIA mafia plots, and also were involved with Nixon's dirty tricks, and I hate to call them dirty tricks teams, during the Watergate era, his political felonies teams.
Right.
And so, when these things don't get exposed enough, and dragged out into the sunlight, these things just keep coming up and coming up. So Nixon and everything he did with his phony war on drugs laid that groundwork for the cocaine-Contra stuff with Reagan and Bush in the 80s and into the early 90s. And then, you can draw that path right to Donald Trump, who used all of the techniques that Roger Stone and Roy Cohn learned from Nixon, the thing that you and I have talked about in past shows called FIBS, fear, ignorance, bigotry, and smear. That's how Nixon got elected. That's how Trump was able to steal the election and almost stole the 2020 election.
Yeah.
And so, that's why I just love to try to drag these things out into the light.
It's amazing. We'll pick this up in literally 1 minute on the other side of this break. Stick around. We'll be right back. Our 1-hour free podcast recaps our show, and it's available wherever fine podcasts are found. And we have the full 3-hour podcast available over at ThomHartmann.com if you want to really support our program. We're trying to provide the very best content that we can for you at Hartmann Report and over at ThomHartmann.com. And on Hartmann Report, every day, 6 days a week, I write an op-ed. Very often they're my rants, also for the radio and television program. And it's ad-free, commercial-free. It's free. You can sign up. It'll get pushed into your email box. Check it out at HartmannReport.com. And, of course, over at ThomHartmann.com, we have our weekly video that we put up every week. that does a deeper dive for people who are members of our program of ThomHartmann.com. And the one this week is about this Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction, SIGAR, their new report that almost 20 million Afghans are on the verge of starvation and nobody's talking about it. Check it out at ThomHartmann.com. Welcome back. Lamar Waldron, the author of Watergate, The Hidden History, the definitive book on Nixon, the Mafia, and the CIA, is on the line with us. So So Lamar, just to recap, Nixon was mobbed up. He was sponsored by the Mafia back in the 50s when he first ran for Congress, or in the 40s, in 46. Right. The Mafia was with him throughout his time as vice president. The Mafia was helping him in the 1960 election against John Kennedy to try to assassinate Castro, because he was getting whacked by Kennedy for letting Cuba go communist. The Mafia, Trafficante and Marcello specifically, were importing heroin into Vietnam and giving cash, literally monthly suitcases full of cash, to Richard Nixon in the White House. And Nixon Nixon, is using the Southern strategy, racism, and all this stuff. How does this relate to today, to the Donald Trump strategy? It seems like a lot of these same people who were involved in trying to execute Castro in the 1960s for Nixon's election, and then later became part of George Herbert Walker Bush and Ronald Reagan's Iran-Contra scandals, are now popping up around Donald Trump. I mean, what's going on here? What's the connection between these things? We have about 2 minutes.
Well, and remember, there were literally people who were involved in or accused of being involved with Iran-Contra. I mean, Elliot Abrams and others who Trump was dragging these people back into government after, decent people had said they shouldn't be involved in government anymore. And again, it does boil down to that strategy: fear, ignorance, bigotry, and smear that started out in the late 40s. I mean, that's what Nixon used. That's what Joe McCarthy used. By the way, Joe McCarthy, there was another big heroin kind of surge in the mid-50s, thanks to Nixon, and the Mafia there. Joe McCarthy, by the way, was a morphine addict, according to the head of the Bureau of Narcotics at the time. So again, just the incredible ironies there. And I can tell you one other bit of news that I haven't said anywhere else. F. Lee Bailey recently died, the famous attorney.
We had dinner with him a couple of years ago, Louise and I. Her father knew him. Her father prosecuted his client, and they became friends.
Interesting. So F. Lee Bailey was making F. Lee Bailey represented one of the Watergate burglars, James McCord. F. Lee Bailey was making regular payphone calls to Santo Trafficante, reporting on the progress of the Watergate trials. But F. Lee Bailey was also on retainer by the CIA. So in other words, it's those CIA Mafia plots, and F. Lee Bailey kept that secret, and I just kind of hint about that in the book. By the way, if you're
Lamar, I'm sorry, we're off the air. We're out of time.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit delivery service. More information at HelloFresh.com, code TOM. CB Distillery for sleeping and pain relief. More info at CBDistillery.com, code TOM. Annie's Kit Clubs, creativity delivered right to your door. More info is available at annieskitclubs.com/Tom. EasyFlow, personal air filtration system. Fresh air anywhere. More info at easyflowusa.com, code Tom. Masterclass with world-class instructors. More info at masterclass.com/Hartman. And Dinovite, only the best all-natural pet supplements. More info at dinovite.com.
straight, fight back!
Not really, no. Take that back, because we're still way behind. Free Speech TV needs your help and needs it today, especially today. And in fact, hey, you know, there's this end of drive challenge. Frontline funder Mike in San Francisco is doubling donations up to $5,000. Plus, we're at the end of the challenge week, which is where frontline funders Sandy and Stewart in Sunnyvale, California, say that if we hit our goals at the end of this week, they're going to kick in another $5,000 too. So your contribution, but you know, in particular, with Mike in San Francisco, your donation will be doubled up to $5,000. Now that's substantial. I realize there are not a lot of $5,000 donors out there, but there might be some $500 donors or some $100 donors or some $50 donors or some $5 donors who would love to see their donation doubled on this last day of the Free Speech TV fund drive, pledge drive. And this is your opportunity right now to double your, what's the old gum ad? I'm not going to sing it, I promise. But your opportunity to double your impact, double your pleasure, and double your fun by calling now, 877-378-8669, and making your contribution on this last day of this pledge drive. Free Speech TV is in a bit of a hole, needs your help digging out of it. And so, you know, the way to do that, very simple, very straightforward. Make a one-time gift of whatever you can, and then, you know, look at your budget. And if you're inclined, you know, if you get value from Free Speech TV, if you're a regular viewer of this program or other programs, then, you know, look at your budget and say, well, okay, I can afford this every month, or I can afford that every month. And, you know, I'll do that for a year and see how it goes and see if Free Speech TV is, you know, if they stay on the air, hopefully we'll still be here. I don't think we're in danger of going away anytime soon, but, or at least I can't speak for Free Speech TV, but I don't think they're in danger of going away anytime soon. But it is tight. It is tight. And I mean that very seriously. And your help is needed. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV, there are volunteers standing by, manning the phones, you know, as they say in the fundraising world, ready to take your call, ready to take your contribution. And whatever you give, whether it's $5, $50, $500, $20, $200, $2,000, whatever it may be, up to $5,000, it will be doubled by Mike in San Francisco. Thank you, Mike, for that. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and put down your marker on the right side of history. Be part of this one single progressive television network, the only one in America. Be part of America's #1 progressive television network. #1. Yeah, we're winners. You can be part of this. Call now, 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. There are, of course, goodies, you know, premiums. When you make your contribution with a $20 gift, there's your choice, the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Take Action, Make History Pride sticker, or the I'm Vaccinated sticker, which, you know, will get you a smile from the maitre d' at the restaurant when you show up, I'm sure. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV Real Change Comes from the Grassroots tote bag in 2 elegant designs. Your choice, fine to go with any outfit. With a $75 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann Collector's Item mug, the official program mug. The only place you can get it is here, and the only time you can get it is now. With a $100 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV face mask, actually 2 of them, or the Wilmington on Fire DVD. Excuse me. With a $120 gift, you get an autographed copy of my book on oligarchy, the hidden history of American oligarchy. Basically, who's conspiring to destroy American democracy, how, and how can we stop them? That's the hidden history of American oligarchy, or the Free Speech TV Justice T-shirt, stylishly designed by Free Speech TV viewer Barry. With a $240 gift, you have your choice of the Reclaiming Democracy book set, Hidden History of Oligarchy, The Hidden History of Monopolies, or the participate in our meet and greet. Come hang out with us in a Zoom call. Those are always fascinating. With the $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann Summer box set with the University bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV bumper sticker, the Take Action, Make History Pride sticker, the Free Speech TV Real Change Comes in the Grassroots tote bag, the Wilmington on Fire DVD, and the collector's item Thom Hartmann mug. And with $1,000, come to Portland and hang out with us for an hour in the third hour of our show, and then we'll go down the street and have a really nice lunch. So that's the pitch. The bottom line, whatever you give when you call right now, 877-378-8669, will be doubled. So please call now. Thank you. Thank you.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Welcome back to the third hour of our program. It's Anything Goes Friday. It's Juneteenth. We're taking your calls for the hour. That was a fascinating conversation with Lamar. And boy, I wish I'd known that when we had dinner with F. Lee Bailey. He was defending as I recall, the Licavoli crime family or something back in the day when Louise's dad was the assistant attorney general for the state of Michigan and was prosecuting them. And they got to know each other, just kind of person to person back then. And so it's a fascinating story. But I had no idea that he was, I guess I should have assumed, he was defending Licavoli. It's, what do you expect? Anyhow, let's pick up some of your phone calls here. I got people who've been on hold for quite a while. Thank you for your patience. Chris in Littleton, Colorado. Hey, Chris, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, hi, Tom. The CORE Act, C-O-R-E, CORE Act would protect millions of acres of pristine mountain wilderness and ecosystems and habitats. And it's happening now. If people could just call their senators and congressmen, tell them to vote for the CORE Act.
Okay. All right. I'll take your word for it, Chris. I'm not familiar with it, but you've called before. I consider you a credible source, so thank you for that. I appreciate it. Jeremiah in Coalport, Pennsylvania. Hey, Jeremiah, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom. I'm wondering about this recent CDC decision to allow people to be in public without masks if they're fully vaccinated, because I think it's a highly irresponsible decision. And in the rural county in Pennsylvania where I live, I think there's roughly 50% that are fully vaccinated, but I'm seeing only about 20% wearing masks, and I'm thinking that those people probably have been vaccinated. So my question to you, Tom, is this decision by the CDC a result of holdovers from the Trump administration trying to sabotage Biden by making the pandemic worse?
I doubt it. I seriously doubt it, Jeremiah, because it was signed off on by Rachel Walensky, who is now the CDC director, and a good person. I find it really hard to believe that was the case. I think what's more likely is that they recognize that if you are vaccinated, now keep in mind this was before the Delta and the Gamma variants came along. But if you are vaccinated, the odds of, even if you're exposed to coronavirus, although they're telling people, even if you're not wearing your mask outdoors, when you're indoors, you should still wear a mask. And if you're in a crowd, you should still wear a mask. You know, if you have any doubts, wear a mask. But they figured that even if you're exposed, if you're vaccinated, you're not even going to know that you've got the disease if you pick it up, because it'll be so mild and asymptomatic. I'm guessing that they may be rethinking that, but I have no idea what's going on inside the CDC. Dr. Eric Feigelding and I were speculating about this yesterday, and he shares my opinion that it was premature. The thing the disaster I see coming that is just going to be a tragedy, I suspect, if it plays out here the way it is in the United Kingdom right now, a tragedy of epic proportions, is you've got county, and we're seeing this in here in Oregon right now, because we get a daily email from the state which lists, who's been diagnosed and who's died and in which counties. And what we're seeing is that Multnomah County, the Portland County basically, the most populous county in Oregon, has a really high vaccination rate and a really low hospitalization and death rate. Whereas the counties that Donald Trump carried in the last election, particularly the counties on the far east side of the state over near Idaho that are just bright, bright red, those counties have vaccination rates in some cases below 25%. And so when the Delta variant arrives, I mean, these folks have been kind of skating by, because the original COVID is relatively hard to catch. I mean, you've got to come into direct contact with a person, and it's got to be a lot of virus, and it's got to be sustained over a period of time. Just walking by somebody isn't enough. This new Delta variant and apparently the Gamma variant, you just walk by somebody and you've got it. And so I think we're going to see just an explosion of disease and death in the red states that are, I agree, unvaccinated, and in red counties. You've got over 100 red counties in the United States right now that have less than 20% vaccination, and probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 700 or 800 counties in the United States that are well below 30 or 40%.
The person at the CDC who made this decision, they had to have known that there are a lot of anti-maskers out there, and that they were going to interpret this decision as, well, I'm not going to get vaccinated, but I can wear my mask or not wear my mask and just say I was vaccinated.
Right. Yeah, I think they knew that would happen, but those people are still at risk of serious illness or death, and now long COVID, we're discovering, is a whole hell of a lot worse than we thought. There was an actor who just committed suicide yesterday. I forget her name. I'm sorry. She was on a show that I'd never seen. But she had been struggling with long COVID for a year now, and finally, she was 50 or in her early 50s, and finally just said, I can't do this anymore, and she committed suicide. This is tough stuff. And with these variants coming, I mean, it's going to be brutal, tough stuff. And I'm like, the old phrase would be weeping for, concerned, let's say, for what's going to happen in these red counties, because a lot of good people who just believed Trump's lies, they watch Fox News, they believe the lies on Fox News, are going to get sick, and a lot of them are going to die, and a lot of them are going to get long COVID, and they're going to be wiped out financially when they start getting the doctor bills, because hospitals are no longer giving people a pass on this kind of stuff. You get sick, you're going to pay the damn bill because you chose not to get vaccinated. And I suspect it's going to get very difficult. And it's probably, everybody's saying, oh, it's going to happen in the fall when we all go back indoors. I think it's going to start happening next month. But in late July, early August. But we'll see. We'll see. I just don't know. Anyhow, Jeremiah, thank you for the call. It's great to hear from you. Ron in Berrien Springs, Michigan. Hey, Ron, what's up?
Hi, Tom. I was in Vietnam, 69 to 70. I saw what Lamar and you were talking about. I saw the heroin epidemic start on my base in July. Okay, just like he said, prior to the heroin coming in, and it came in real quick, marijuana was prevalent all over, okay, and things were peaceful and calm. And then you could not get any marijuana, but what you could get was the purest heroin in the world. And I saw on my base Vietnamese in uniform openly selling heroin, and a sergeant was standing here, and I asked him, I said, Sergeant, what are you going to do about that? And he looked at me and he just walked away. At that point in Vietnam, they had taken our rifles away from us because they did not trust us anymore.
The officers?
But if
because of fragging?
Yes, the officers and the sergeant. Yes, because of fragging and shooting of officers and sergeants. There was a fragging incident on the base that I was stationed at, but that's a whole other story. And it's and it helped end the war in Vietnam.
Yeah.
Okay, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is basically a
proof of
revolt
this.
by the soldiers.
Yes, but that heroin epidemic, it strung out almost every guy that I knew, and he even got the alcoholics hooked on heroin. Okay, it was that bad. And
were people snorting it, smoking it, or shooting it?
All of that, Tom, but mainly shooting it. But they smoked it. Also, it was just, man, But here's the thing: the CIA was getting the heroin out of the Golden Triangle. There was Burma, Thailand, and some other, and the CIA was flying it into Vietnam, and of course they would take their cut for the United States and Europe out of Thailand. The Politics of Heroin. Professor Alfred McCoy, University of Wisconsin, it verifies that.
Yeah,
but,
and then during the Reagan administration, it was bringing cocaine up from Central America and selling it here in the United States.
The Politics of Cocaine, the same Professor McCoy out of Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Yes, Tom. But
you were there and you saw it.
Yes, sir. And but I volunteered for Vietnam, and I worked against the war in Vietnam. Okay, and I'm proud to say that. And thank you for having for Lamar on, Tom, and bringing up some good memories.
Yeah, thank you, Ron. No doubt some tough memories anyway. Yeah, I get it. Ron, thank you. Thanks for listening to Sirius XM. Thanks for the call from Berrien Springs. It's great to hear from a fellow Michigander. We'll be right back. It's 15 minutes past the hour. Stick around.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
It's Juneteenth. It's Anything Goes Friday. It's the 50th anniversary of Nixon's war on drugs, which is just finally starting to wind down. And welcome back. Kenyatta in Los Angeles. Hey, what's on your mind?
Oh, Jumbo, my brother.
Jumbo.
Let me say to you first, before I called to ask you a question, Tom. I really don't have much of a comment. But let me say to you, my German is a little rusty, but I know you live there, so let me say first, Guten Vaterstag, which I guess.
Vielen Dank.
Okay. See,
thank you very much.
And then the other would be Happy Inaugural Juneteenth, and that's a segue into my question.
Yeah.
And I'm asking you this question, and it's a question that has a lot of gravity for me, Tom. And I'm actually working on a piece, so your answer is probably going to factor into parts of that piece. But you're the only European American intellectual that I'm aware of with the courage to answer it, and that's this. We have a holiday now called Juneteenth. And then, of course, before that was the Martin Luther King holiday, a man who
30 years ago.
Everyone applauds. Yeah, applauds as a man of peace, but died a most violent death. My question to you, and maybe one of your listeners could weigh in on this, is why is it that this country still, holiday schmoliday, why is this country still not formally apologized? I don't want to celebrate the last remaining slaves of Galveston, or I don't care about the holiday because that's not taking responsibility. And the damage that has been done, and I know that you've read this and heard me say it before, to black people in the United States is unparalleled in human history. We don't even have our names. How would you feel if you woke up tomorrow, Tom, and your name was Tom Mbulu? All that history before that, it's all been erased with us. So, again, I'm sorry to get off the beaten path, but that's my question. Why is it that this country still has not apologized for the harm that it's done to an entire race of people and continues to do?
Yeah. You know, Canada has a very, very large indigenous population, basically the northern half of Canada. And it was only I think 8-10 years ago, that they finally acknowledged the slaughter, the genocide that they had involved themselves with, and apologized, and basically turned half of the Northwest Territories over to indigenous rule. There was an effort during the Obama administration, and please accept my apology for not remembering who did this, but you'll recall that at some point during the Obama administration, there were several members of Congress, and I believe it probably came out of the Black Congressional Caucus, who were attempting to get a resolution of apology passed. Not asking for reparations, not asking for monuments, not asking for national holidays, just, hey, we're sorry. And when that happened, all hell broke loose, as you'll recall. Fox News came down like a ton of bricks. Right-wing radio went nuts. This is the beginning of the end. This is, and it's, I hope that the Biden administration uses this opening as an opportunity to revisit that, because an apology is necessary, at the very least. At the very, it just
Why
is,
do you
this
think
is a
it
frigging
hasn't
starting point. Yeah. So that's all I know about it, Kenyatta. I know that it will be politically nuts. It will hyperactivate the Trump base, but screw them, right? Screw them. Anyhow, I got to run. Kenyatta, thanks for the call. Always nice to hear from you, my friend. It's 20 minutes past the hour. We'll be back. Change starts with you. You can be calling your Democratic or Republican representatives to let them know what you think by calling 202-224-3121. It's the Capitol switchboard. It'll get you right through to them. In addition to the free newsletter that we have over at ThomHartmann.com, which gives you literally a link to every story or article I've talked about throughout the day, every day, comes into your email box every day. There's no charge. In addition to that, and my daily rants, which are free of advertising and free of charge over at HartmannReport.com, we also produce a weekly video. This week's video is about how power companies around the country, for-profit power companies 100% of the time, these power companies around the country are making it harder and harder and more expensive for people to install solar in their homes. All kinds of ways of trying to block people from doing this. And increasingly, they're getting support from Republican politicians, both at the local and the state level. It's something that we really need to know about, we need to be paying attention to, and we need to be aggressively pushing back on. You can check it out over at ThomHartmann.com and at HartmannReport.com. So, anything goes Friday today, and picking up your phone calls. Mary in Salamanca, New York. Am I saying that right, Mary?
Yes, Salamanca, New York. Yes.
Hi, Mary.
It's the only city that's on an Indian reservation. It's called our nation is called the Seneca Nation of Indians. Ah. And yes, and I'm a member of the Seneca Nation of Indians.
Good on you.
Well, what I want to say today is about the reparations and for the black people, and then congratulations. I don't know if that's not the correct word, but the Juneteenth national holiday is also a big thing for that race. And what I like to speak about is the reparations for the black people that are starting to get louder and louder and have more voices, which is just fine. But in my history and what I'm thinking about is the First Nations, the peoples that were here and got invaded by white Europeans, and I'm just saying that there's untold millions of us that were slaughtered then, genocide, and if there was a struggling few of us, they penned us up on reservations, and we really didn't leave the reservation only to find work or get supplies that we couldn't produce on the reservations. Is what I'm saying is we need to address before anything is the Indian peoples of this continent need to be first in line for any reparations. I don't mean money. I mean acts from Washington that will give us a good-sized land base, because these tiny little reservations just don't cut it for the growing populations finally. And we need more land, sustainable land. And I also like to see every First Nations member not to pay state or federal tax. I think that'll just because we're almost annihilated and we're invisible. There's nobody speaking about our atrocities.
Yeah.
You know, it's just in the millions and millions and millions.
Oh, it was the largest genocide in the history of the world.
Yes, and this mythical thing they got that Hollywood and all these other authors and places that come out with this propaganda about Indians is just so wrong, right. And it perpetrated through generations and generations and generations. I'm not taking back the black race. Black race is it's astounding what they've accomplished in science and arts, everything. But one thing, they lived side by side with the white people, and they learned from them. They suffered, yes. Murdered, yes. Racism, yes. But they also learned, so they lifted themselves up. Meanwhile, the reservation people, my people, you know, we're stunted. It's like the American people can't come to grips with what they did with us, and we're silent.
Mary, we still have a holiday that I believe that celebrates Christopher Columbus, who came to this country and started the slaughter and enslavement of Native Americans, or came to this side of the world anyway. It seems like, and I know Berkeley, California has done this, but I'm not sure where else has or if any states has, but it seems like a starting point if First Nations people want to start really lobbying for the beginning of recognition, like as happened with Juneteenth, would be to change Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day and begin a conversation about, you know, what kind of reparations can we offer Indigenous people, as well as people who were captured overseas, brought here, and enslaved. I don't see those two things being mutually exclusive. So, do you know if there's a movement to do that? I'm guessing that there is.
Well, I will look into it, Tom, and thank you for taking time for me to voice my opinion.
My pleasure, Mary, and keep in touch with us. You know, it's nice to hear from you, and give our very best regards to everybody there on the res. Thank you so much. It's coming up on 28 minutes past the hour here. It's Anything Goes Friday. Back with your calls right after this.
You're listening to the Thom Hartmann Program. Call 202-808-9925.
It's the place where we dare to ask, is Walmart a person? And we dare to say, only if you consider it a psychopath. No, not really. No. Take that back, because we're still way behind. Free Speech TV needs your help and needs it today, especially today. And in fact, hey, you know, there's this end of drive challenge. Frontline funder Mike in San Francisco is doubling donations up to $5,000. Plus, we're at the end of the challenge week, which is where frontline funders Sandy and Stewart in Sunnyvale, California, say that if we hit our goals at the end of this week, they're going to kick in another $5,000 too. So your contribution, but you know, in particular, with Mike in San Francisco, your donation will be doubled up to $5,000. Now that's substantial. I realize there are not a lot of $5,000 donors out there, but there might be some $500 donors or some $100 donors or some $50 donors or some $5 donors who would love to see their donation doubled on this last day of the Free Speech TV fund drive, pledge drive. And this is your opportunity right now to double your, what's the old gum ad? I'm not going to sing it, I promise. But your opportunity to double your impact, double your pleasure, and double your fun by calling now, 877-378-8669, and making your contribution on this last day of this pledge drive. Free Speech TV is in a bit of a hole, needs your help digging out of it. And so, you know, the way to do that, very simple, very straightforward. Make a one-time gift of whatever you can, and then, you know, look at your budget. And if you're inclined, you know, if you get value from Free Speech TV, if you're a regular viewer of this program or other programs, then, you know, look at your budget and say, well, okay, I can afford this every month, or I can afford that every month. And, you know, I'll do that for a year and see how it goes, and see if Free Speech TV is, you know, if they stay on the air, hopefully we'll still be here. I don't think we're in danger of going away anytime soon, but or at least I can't speak for Free Speech TV, but I don't think they're in danger of going away anytime soon. But it is tight. It is tight. And I mean that very seriously. And your help is needed. So please call now, 877-378-8669. Free Speech TV, there are volunteers standing by, manning the phones, you know, as they say in the fundraising world, ready to take your call, ready to take your contribution. And whatever you give, whether it's $5, $50, $500, $20, $200, $2,000, whatever it may be, up to $5,000, it will be doubled by Mike in San Francisco. Thank you, Mike, for that. So please call now, 877-378-8669, and put down your marker on the right side of history. Be part of this one single progressive television network, the only one in America. Be part of America's #1 progressive television network. #1. Yeah, we're winners. You can be part of this. Call now, 877-378-8669 is the telephone number. There are, of course, goodies, you know, premiums. When you make your contribution with a $20 gift, there's your choice of the Thom Hartmann University bumper sticker, or the Take Action, Make History Pride sticker, or the I'm Vaccinated sticker, which, you know, will get you a smile from the maitre d' at the restaurant when you show up, I'm sure. With a $50 gift, there's the Free Speech TV Real Change Comes from the Grassroots tote bag in 2 elegant designs. Your choice, fine to go with any outfit. With a $75 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann Collector's Item mug, the official program mug. The only place you can get it is here, and the only time you can get it is now. With a $100 gift, you have your choice of the Free Speech TV face mask, actually 2 of them, or the Wilmington on Fire DVD. Excuse me. With a $120 gift, you get an autographed copy of my book on oligarchy, the hidden history of American oligarchy. Basically, you know, who's conspiring to destroy American democracy, how, and how can we stop them? That's the hidden history of American oligarchy, or the Free Speech TV Justice T-shirt, stylishly designed by Free Speech TV viewer Barry. With a $240 gift, you have your choice of the Reclaiming Democracy book set, Hidden History of Oligarchy, The Hidden History of Monopolies, or the participate in our meet and greet. Come hang out with us in a Zoom call. Those are always fascinating. With the $360 gift, there's the Thom Hartmann Summer box set with the University bumper sticker, the Free Speech TV bumper sticker, the Take Action, Make History Pride sticker, the Free Speech TV Real Change Comes in the Grassroots tote bag, the Wilmington on Fire DVD, and the Collector's Item Thom Hartmann mug. And with $1,000, come to Portland and hang out with us for an hour in the third hour of our show, and then we'll go down the street and have a really nice lunch. So that's the pitch. The bottom line, whatever you give when you call right now, 877-378-8669, will be doubled. So please call now. Thank you. Missed my opening rant today? It's usually published over at HartmannReport.com, where you can read it and share it with your friends for free. Check it out, HartmannReport.com. We try to have a lot of content over at ThomHartmann.com, and of course every day my daily rant goes up at HartmannReport.com. No advertising, no fee or anything like that. You can even get it pushed out to your email box for free. But we also have, podcasts available that are free through wherever your favorite podcast provider may be, or the full 3-hour program. It's a 1-hour podcast, the one that's free out there. There's also the 3-hour podcast available at ThomHartmann.com. And we have a special video this week for supporters of the Thom Hartmann Program. It's over at ThomHartmann.com about the 62 worst members of the U.S. House of Representatives and Josh Hawley in the Senate. These are the people who voted against the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act, which passed the Senate and the House overwhelmingly. But these 62 members of the House did what is just awful. You can check it out at ThomHartmann.com. And welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. The Republicans have now formally said to Joe Manchin, nice try, but we won't vote for anything that has any voting rights in it. We're all, we're just kind of totally going, we're just totally going in with voter suppression and voter nullification. This is now the official position of the Republican Party. If you're black, if you're brown, if you're a Social Security voter, if you're older, if you're young, if you're a student or in your 20s, Republicans don't want you voting. And they're going to do everything they can to stop it, including sending goons to your polling place to try to intimidate you and purging you from the voting roll list just before the election, as Brian Kemp did when he ran against Stacey Abrams, threw 100,000 people off the voting rolls in Georgia, and then won by 50,000 votes. I mean, really? Yeah, that's how it works. So that's happening. The other thing that's happening is that a number of legislators are starting to pay attention to the fact that slavery actually never ended in America. Now, I realize a lot of people, a lot of white people anyway, when I say that go, what? But as I've been pointing out for years on this program, the 13th Amendment, which they will teach you in high school or elementary school or wherever you learned it, ended slavery formally, banned slavery. I believe it was passed in 1868. I'd have to go back and look, but it was, right after the Civil War. The 13th Amendment does not actually end slavery. It says slavery shall be, now this I'm just paraphrasing, I could read it to you, but I've done that before. But basically what it says is you can't have slavery in America except for persons convicted of a crime. If you have been convicted of a crime, you literally can be held in slavery. And in many states in the United States, that's exactly what happens. You end up on if you're in the South, you end up on what used to be a plantation populated by slaves, but you're equally enslaved and you're out there picking cotton, literally, for nothing. And so there's a movement in Congress to actually end slavery in the United States in 2021. Sign me up. Right, sign me up. Christine in Lexington, South Carolina. Hey, Christine, what's on your mind today?
Hi, Tom. Thanks for taking my call. I was just reading something I found interesting and astonishing. Well, I guess I shouldn't say astonished. About the conference of the Catholic bishops. Mm-hmm. Just had a meeting Wednesday, and they voted unanimously, just about 70-something to 20-something, to deny Biden communion.
Right.
Because of his stance on abortion.
Right.
Biden, who has gone faithfully to church forever, and I'm comparing this to where were they during Trump's reign with his promiscuity, and I didn't hear them saying anything then.
No, this is not about morality, Christine. No. This is not about abortion even. What this is about is raw power. This is that a large chunk of the Catholic Church in the United States has gotten into bed with the Republican Party, and they are scratching each other's backs, and the Republican Party is doing absolutely everything they can to bring down Joe Biden any way they can, and trying to tear at him from dozens of different directions, and this is just one of their newest ones. And I think it's one of the reasons why people don't go to Catholics don't go to church anymore, why Catholics are calling themselves lapsed Catholics or even repudiating the Catholic Church, going to, if they want to continue going to church, going to some of the gentler, Protestant denominations. We're starting to see also, the other group that is gung-ho about this is the white evangelical church in the United States. And they're starting to lose members as well. And they're doing the same thing. There's, Joe Biden and Democrats and abortion, quack, 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 quack. It's got nothing to do with abortion. If they really wanted to limit abortion in the United States, they would be promoting the rights and empowerment of women and widespread access to birth control. And they are not doing any of the above. They're doing the exact opposite. These people don't give a damn about abortion. It's all about power. It's always been about power.
And it's political. They've got the elections coming up.
Politics is always about power, too. Pardon my interrupting. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, they want to use that. They don't have a tool against Biden right now, so they're going to try to make this one a big headline for them for the midterms.
Yep. Yeah, I'm with you.
It's playing. Yeah. Yep. Well, anyway, that's my rant.
Okay, Christine, thank you. It's great to hear from you. I appreciate the call. This has got to be a tough time to be an American Catholic if you're a practicing Catholic. It's got to be a tough time for Joe Biden. Tamara in Joplin, Missouri, you are on the air. What's up? Tamara? I am not hearing Tamara. Tamara's on line 7 if you want to check that out, Joyce. Jeff in Portland. Hey, Jeff, what's up?
Hi, Tom. Happy Friday and happy Juneteenth. And, I know you and Lamar also wrote a hidden history book about JFK's assassination.
Yes, and Bobby's.
Okay. And yesterday you tweeted a really cool clip of JFK advocating for universal health care and his admiration for the UK's national health system. And that was 60 years ago. Just another stark reminder of how long we've been trying to drag Republicans into allowing America in becoming a 21st century country. So, another great shame we share as a nation, Tom, is that Americans are killing each other with guns at 25 times the rate of other high-income countries. Mm-hmm. And we really shouldn't have to live and die like this.
We have 25 times more guns. I mean, everybody, this is the thing that astonishes me, Jeff, and I'm waiting. Somebody's going to do the math on this. And, I just don't have the bandwidth or the resources to do it. But last year was the highest gun sales in the history of the United States, possibly with the exception of the year 2009 when Obama was elected president, became his first year as president. And so, if we added, and I don't know how many guns that was, but let's say it was 20 million additional guns or 30 million additional guns. If you add 5% to your guns and you have a 5% increase in gun deaths, it's kind of like, 1 + 1 = 2. I mean, we've got more guns, so of course we're going to have more guns, deaths. Back to you, Jeff.
Yeah. And to that point, Tom, Fred Guttenberg, Guttenberg, his 14-year-old daughter, Jamie, was killed in the Parkland school shooting. Mm-hmm. And, Fred has an open letter to Congress on his Twitter feed. It's under the heading of Dads for Gun Safety, this being Father's Day weekend. But it's for anyone to sign and retweet. And you can also find it at bradyunited.org. He's calling for universal background checks, extreme risk laws, and an assault weapons ban. And, Tom, I think you and I both agree we need to also an assault weapons buyback program.
Yes.
But, Fred's letter is a great start. I liked your caller earlier in the week who said, we should have, Swiss Army. You turn in your assault weapon and you get a Swiss Army knife. That would be. I mean, and you know, it's only half joking, you know, because look at these vaccine lotteries. Maybe if we, you know, incentivize, you know, you turn in your assault weapon and you get entered into a lottery to win $1 million. You know, I mean, we got to think outside the box on this.
Yeah. I don't disagree. Jeff, thank you. Thank you. Very well said. 43 minutes. It's coming up on 44 minutes past the hour. We'll be right back with more of your calls on Anything Goes Friday.
You're listening to Thom Hartmann. Visit TomHartmann.com for audio and video archives.
Back with more of your calls, as they say in the radio business, right after this. And welcome back. Terry in Ventura, California. Hey, Terry. Thanks for waiting so long. My apologies. What's up?
Hey, Tom. Thank you. Hey, Tom. My topic is voter intimidation. It's how you started up the half hour. Okay, Tom?
Yeah.
Are we there?
We are.
Okay. My topic, voter intimidation. Question for you in part, something to think about. Twofold, voter intimidation, what we should do and what I did, okay?
Okay.
First of all, what are we going to do come November 22? I wouldn't be surprised if we have a number Q-oriented local election officials. Okay, I've been somewhat under the influence of Malcolm Nance when we feared in Pennsylvania the Patriots were going to be there with guns, challenging our vote. Okay, Tom, what I did. Okay, you have read of San Luis Obispo County. It was racial, and it was threatened to life. The supervisor of elections there was Asian. It was. Oh
yeah, he got run out of town by the QAnon people, basically. I mean, literally left town. He didn't just quit his job.
That's right. Some of it was voter and some of it was actually threatened his life, but he quit. Okay, this is going to be more common, I predict.
It already is. About a quarter of all election officials around the country have either quit or said they're seriously considering it.
Right. This is going to be a real problem. What are we going to do when our votes are challenged, next year? So I'll tell you what I did, Tom, and your thoughts as this involves in order to protect our vote. What I did, I called the state senator who represents San Luis Obispo County, and she said her senator was mostly concerned about the racial aspects. And I said to his administrative aide, hey, these people might be calling you up, and intimidating you. And it was like, oh, I never thought of that. Okay.
Wow.
So what she said, I said, I think it's more than racial, however, component of what happened in San Luis Obispo. But also,
it's a lot more than racial, and it's happening all over the country.
It happens to be against California law to call somebody up and threaten their lives. So my call prompted her to, she said her state senator would be referring this to the Attorney General of the state of California.
The this being your call, or the this being the what's she referring to the AG?
When I suggested this should be submitted to the AG so that these people could be, at very minimum, investigated and maybe even prosecuted.
Yeah, the people who were threatening the election supervisor.
Yeah, and it's like she never thought of that. So what can our role be to protect our vote in the coming year, Tom?
We're going to have to fight for it. And Terry, I predicted the 2022 election. This is going to be a critical election because it's going to determine, whether the Democrats can hang on to the House and Senate, and the right-wing billionaires and giant corporation. I mean, we saw this guy was called earlier from Iowa, and he said this organization is just carpet bombing the state with anti-Biden ads. Turns out the organization's largest single donor is pharma, the big pharmaceutical industry. Everybody, all these giant corporations and the billionaires that they have made are going to be just pouring out in 2022. We are going to be overwhelmed with negative advertising and with voter intimidation and all this stuff. And get ready. I don't have any easy answer for this, Terry. It's going to have to be fought locally by people like you and me who actually care about what's going on. Terry, thank you for the call. Fortunately, here in Oregon, it's all mail-in ballots. Share the Thom Hartmann Program with your friends. We're available on SiriusXM, Free Speech TV, Pacifica, commercial stations nationwide, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, on the Thom Hartmann app, and you can even tell your smart speaker to listen to the Thom Hartmann Program. Over at ThomHartmann.com, we have our newsletter, our regular newsletter that Sue puts together every day. It's got a link in it to every single article that I talk about on the air. So you can see, the backup for everything that I have to say. It's free. There's some ads in it that just, pay for it, basically. But that's it. There's that. And then, of course, over at HartmannReport.com, also no charge, there is our daily rant. So those are two things on the internet that we have. We also, periodically put up videos specifically for the people who are supporters of our program. And you can find our most recent one. It's about guns. This sheriff in Volusia County, the sheriff deputy there, asking the media, where have we gone wrong when a 14-year-old girl and a 12-year-old boy are having a shootout with deputies? And Texas passing this bizarre new gun law. Anyhow, it's all over at ThomHartmann.com. You can find it right there. Check it out. And welcome back. Picking up your phone calls. Tamara in Joplin, Missouri. Hey, Tamara, what's up?
I don't know what happened. I could hear you, but you couldn't hear me.
Ah, okay.
Anyway, everything Lamar says is true about the Vietnam soldiers coming back heroin junkies. I was living in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, Fayetteville, which is home of the 82nd Airborne. And half the men I was bartending, and half the men were junkies. Wow. They would sneak around in back to the alleys and run up their heroin. And the MPs had a bus at the end of the street. It was called Hay Street. And it was 4 blocks of nothing but bars on both sides. Wow. And this is where all the soldiers were in the early to mid 70s to the late 70s, all the way to almost to the 80s. Yeah. And they would literally pick these soldiers up out of the ditch there in front of bars and carry them to the bus. And when they got a busload full, they'd drive them back to the base.
Oh, amazing. Well, and
it is amazing.
Yeah, and Lamar said the scandal around this, and this was again being driven by Trafficante and Marcello, the guys who paid to kill Kennedy and the guys who owned Richard Nixon, and who were sending Richard Nixon a suitcase full of money every single month throughout the years he was in the White House. This was their operation.
We know the Republicans like to bring these guys back. Heck, they brought back Negroponte.
Yes. Yeah,
under
Mr.
Bush
Death
Jr.
Squad. Yeah. Trump brought back Negroponte, and I believe Elliot Abrams also, who had been convicted in the Iran-Contra scandals and then was pardoned by George Herbert Walker Bush at the suggestion of his Attorney General Bill Barr.
But it was very sad to see so many young men's lives ruined by being junkies. It'd be 100 degrees outside, and half of them would be in civilian clothes and long-sleeve shirts.
Right, to cover up their tracks.
Because they were hiding their tracks.
Yeah, I get it. I knew people like that. One of my best friends was a brilliant guitarist. He died of a heroin overdose. His son is now a senior advisor to the Biden White House, and a brilliant guy who I remember from when he was like 2 years old, but I've never met as an adult. But I kept up with his wife, or his widow, for years. She just died a couple of years ago, and I saw that same. And this was in East Lansing, and heroin was all over the place. And, it turns out it was because Nixon was getting bribed to let the heroin trade go in Vietnam. It's just mind-boggling. Tamara, thank you. Thank you for the first-person story. Great to hear from you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Ed in Pine Bush, New York. Hey, Ed, what's on your mind today?
Hey, Tom, I'll try to make this quick because I know we don't have much time. This is a story of a personal transformation. I wanted to call when Professor Hinton was on the other day. I grew up in a military family. My folks were from West Virginia and Ohio, and they were, they weren't cross burners, but they were racist, and the N-word was used around the house. And my dad he was a military man. He used to tell anecdotes about how he would play practical jokes on black airmen. And basically, I had no black friends growing up. I didn't know any black kids. My first black friend was in college, and when I talked about him to my family, there was a meltdown, basically. But I lived through the Kennedy years. My dad was stationed in Montgomery, Alabama at the War College there, and I watched tanks roll right down the street in front of my high school on their way to Ole Miss to integrate it.
Wow.
And I eventually, inspired by the Kennedys and their position on race, I joined the Peace Corps. I served for 2 years in Uganda during Idi Amin's coup.
Mm-hmm.
And
you were there in what, 79, 80? I was there in 79 and 80.
It was 69. Well, I went through the, the immersion, the language immersion, and about 69, into 69, I was there for 71 and 72.
So you're talking about when what's his name, took power.
Yeah.
I was there when he got kicked out.
No,
Idi Amin, yeah.
It was a tough time. I loved it so much in Africa. I wanted to extend my tour, but he made it kind of dangerous to be there.
Yeah.
But anyway, I lived among the people that their tribal group was ostracized by the rest of the Africans living in Uganda because they wore no clothes. They
You're
believed
talking about the Karamojong?
Yeah, the Karamojong.
That's where I was working, up in the north, in Karamojong.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's great. I'd love to interview you sometime. You've had such a varied experience in the world.
Yeah.
At any rate,
it's a remarkable country. They're beautiful people. They're just extraordinary.
Yeah, and
extraordinary.
Very strong people.
And the culture is so. This is like one of the last kind of hunter-gatherer tribes. Well, actually, they're pastoralists. They herd cattle.
Yeah.
Now. And
they're related to the Maasai. It's the same grouping.
That's right. And their culture is so rich.
Yes. And they reject the West.
Mm-hmm.
Their attitude. When money comes in, and they've even taken down telegraph wires and things and turned them into jewelry that is practical value to them. But anyway, long story short, besides teaching English, I had to teach current events, and I had to, analyze what was going on in the world.
About 20 seconds.
Okay. Well, anyway, 3 things I want to say. In order for a person to transform from being a racist to a human being, you have to have good moral leadership in the country, number 1. You have to live with people and get to know them, and more than anything else, you have to learn. You have to read your history, and read the history of Africa.
I got to cut you off, Ed, but thank you. That was brilliant. I appreciate it. And love to swap Uganda stories with you someday. Hey, special thanks to Louise Hartman, Sean Taylor, Nate Atwell, Jamie Holly, Joyce the Hammer, Nance, Nigel Peacock, Sue Nethercutt, Patrick Hoyt, Geraldine Halbert, Ron Hartenbaum, Chase Spross, Nicholas Miller, Pat Sweeney, Jabberwocky, Jay LeBlanc, Connor Arroyo, and Carne Verde for working with us on making this program work for you. And thanks to all of the affiliates that carry our program. Please reach out to them and let them know you appreciate it. If you do, let them know. And get out there, get active, tag you're it. Have a great weekend.
You've been listening to Thom Hartmann. For audio and video archives, visit ThomHartmann.com.
These companies support the Thom Hartmann Program. They are HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit delivery service. More information at HelloFresh.com, code TOM. CB Distillery for sleeping and pain relief. More info at cbdistillery.com, code TOM. Annie's Kit Clubs, creativity delivered right to your door. More info is available at annieskitclubs.com/Tom. EasyFlow, personal air filtration system. Fresh air anywhere. More info at easyflowusa.com, code TOM. Masterclass with world-class instructors. More info at masterclass.com/Hartmann. And Dinovite, only the best all-natural pet supplements. More info at dinovite.com.